here and adjust myself. My apologies for being 3 minutes late. I'm usually on time. Depends on what I'm doing, I suppose. But I'm starting off this live cast with just a few thoughts from the back of my mind. And as I said, I'm going to wait for a few people to join here. I have quite a bit to talk about. I didn't plan this live cast ahead of time, as usual. And I do apologize for anybody who's watching this after the fact. I know that some people do like to watch the live cast later because they don't know it's going to be posted. And I usually do this out of the blue, let's just say. And I got a squeaky couch here. I need to fix that. Just going to put this piece of wood down so I'm not making fart sounds the whole time. There we go. That's a lot better. Oh, it's good to see you. Hello, Rob, and hello, Chris. It's good to see both of you. And I've got a few things I need to talk about here. I was going to do this as a video earlier, and I started talking about it. I got about 5-6 minutes in, and then I got a text from my wife. Now, often I'll put my phone in airplane mode if I'm making a video, but I got a text. She was asking if I could take the kid to karate today. And I said, yeah, because I usually can, right? So, hello, Sandra. Welcome. So, I didn't want her to worry whether or not I could take my son to karate, so I stopped the video I was making about 5-6 minutes in and then answered her. And then I thought to myself, should I post this video? And, I thought about it for a little while and realized that I was going to talk about why everything sucks today. And I got really into it. But within the first 5 minutes, I was instantly talking about super controversial issues that are probably things that I shouldn't get involved in talking about. Things like, well, let me put it this way, okay? Everyone, I'm sure all of you out there can relate to this. You hear something on the news, you hear something from a friend, you read something in a post somewhere, a text, whatever it might be, and it gets your blood boiling. You get frustrated and you start thinking, dude, that's fucked up. I really got to talk about this, or I wish I could express my feelings about this situation. And you try to think about how you're going to talk about it, and eventually, it fades away. That feeling fades away of being frustrated about something. And you forget about it. Maybe it's somebody who got hurt in another country or some issue with another government, something that has nothing to do with us. Well, today, we have the opportunity to post this shit online. Okay? And so if I get something that really frustrates me, the first thing that I want to do is make a video about it. And so I was already amidst making this video, or at least writing down topics about things that I really think suck today, which I'm going to get into. I'm going to wait till I'm probably about 10 minutes in to go down my list, but because I have a few things to discuss here. And hopefully some more people will join, so I don't feel like anybody missed the party. So, where do I start? The video I actually watched earlier, it was this younger Asian guy. I'm going to say he was under 20. I mean, he might have been a teenager. He was young. And, there's a lot of wisdom in the youth today. There's a lot of dumbass out there. Believe me, there is a lot of dumbass. But there's also a lot of very intelligent young people out there. And a lot of them that see through the bullshit that's going on. And I just so happened upon this channel of this guy who was a younger Asian guy who was talking. His whole channel was based on expressing how he feels being treated horribly by the black community, the racism towards his community, right? So instantly there we are, hot button topic, right? Well, this is very important as to the story of what I'm going to talk about tonight and why everything sucks today. Because we can start with the internet, and that's going to be the very first topic on the list. And it has to do with not the reality of what's going on in the world, but the reality that we're being fucking fed, spoon fed, the garbage that we're being consistently, the fodder that we are being pushed to. Um, Hello, Daily Dose of Mental Health. Good to see you. The constant fodder that we are being fed every single day, and that sadly enough people are buying into. Like, there's a little bit of hope on the horizon, right? That we know the world is not as the media portrays it. That most people aren't out there going crazy and road raging and attacking everyone, but there's a definite increase in violence, in anger and frustration out in society, and that's why I'm talking about this, because I think this topic is extremely important. Why are people so frustrated? Why are people so angry? And therefore, why does everything suck? Which leads to people being more frustrated, which leads to it sucking even more. It's a conundrum. As the world begins to fall apart, all I can think of is this post this morning about somebody talking about the Matrix, which is completely overused. But the particular fact that in the movie, they asked why did they come to 1999, or why was that the time they chose? And they said because it was the peak of your civilization. And how true that rings today. How they couldn't have even known when they made the movie that, yes, indeed, 1999, 2000 was about the peak of civilization. And what I mean by that is, sure, we got plenty more technology now, but we aren't as civilized. We're losing something. We're losing our values. We're losing our integrity. We're losing our rationality and our ability to actually have a one-on-one normal conversation with each other without getting all bent out of shape about something stupid. I didn't finish the discussion about that younger Asian guy, and the video that I came across was him saying that white people are being treated horribly. And I was like, what is this? So after watching it, I thought, wow, he understands something that I'm really glad he understands. That he basically played back-to-back clips of all the extreme versions of people saying, well, black people can't be racist, and all white people are horrible, white people should feel guilty, look what your ancestors did, and how there's kind of a reverse discrimination. And his thing was, he said, I'm an Asian, so I can talk about it, right? But if white people talk about it, then they become ridiculed, and then they're considered racists. And this was just one small part of a much bigger, much broader issue out there, which has much more to do with mental health than it has to do with gender or culture or genetics, or you're black or white or male or female. These things aren't as important as what's in your fucking heart and your soul. How do you behave to other people? How do you treat a stranger regardless of who they are? I don't care what color they are. So in other words, if you're a person who is of African American descent, maybe you've got Asian, whatever it might be, and you look at white people as the enemy just because you feel like they've oppressed your ancestors or you're just as much of a racist as anyone who does that. It's hard for me to even defend that point without just saying it seems so obvious to me, right? But it doesn't really matter, and that's the point I'm getting at. People get all bent out of shape saying, look at how reverse discrimination, how much of this we have now, people attacking other people and getting away with it. So fucking what? Let people talk online. Let people say what they have to say. Because what I'm getting at here is not that anybody needs to be harassed or berated or punished, but rather the reverse, that we need to stop just listening to people and giving them the attention that they crave. And and I'm not, it's funny because as I make a video here, I'm talking about attention. And it's funny because I've watched several YouTubers who I respect talking about this very thing. And in fact, I think it was Aperture or this old, I can't remember the channel, but yeah, they were talking about attention and how everyone, it's called Then and Now. If you haven't seen the channel, it's great. It's called Then and Now with ampersand, Then and Now, whatever. It's just this guy who talks about how things were and how things have changed. And I believe the one he was talking about today was attention, and how we give our attention to people and things that don't deserve it, ideas that don't deserve our attention. And it's a very difficult topic because who am I to say what should be given attention to, right? It doesn't matter to me what other people by their time with. Whatever people choose to do, we are all individuals, unique. Regardless, it's all about what's in here, in our hearts and our minds. And so we need to find kind of our own path, and that's going to build us true happiness. So why does everything suck? If I'm talking about true happiness, if I'm saying everyone can do their own thing, then why am I sitting here acting like I'm complaining and saying everything sucks today? Well, as I said, I'm going to start with the internet. The internet has completely gone ass backwards. A lot of folks don't know this, but it's fascinating to me that when television first came out, when it first became available in the household, there was a discussion about whether or not to put adverts or advertisements on television. Okay? This was a time when people were very paranoid about people's voices intruding on their home, in their home, with their family, in their private family time. There's so many people out there who said, this will never happen. Nobody will allow advertisements in their homes. Well, what eventually happened was the soap opera came to be. And if you're not aware of this, it's a fascinating story and you should definitely look into it. But the soap opera was so named because it was literally a commercial to sell soap. What it would be is a short story, romance, whatever it might be. And in between, they would have these soap commercials brought to you by Bronner's Soap or whoever it might be. And it would be aimed at the housewife who was at home doing cleaning, watching, or listening to these soap operas. And eventually they realized they could also sell you cigarettes, they could sell you alcohol, they could sell you everything under the sun. And now we end up with basically ads on every block. I was telling my wife earlier, like, nothing is sacred. I was like, I don't have any desire to go to New York. Every time I see somebody going down the main avenues, it's nothing but fucking glowing neon, not even neon anymore, sorry, it's all LED billboards. And oh man, it's disgusting to me. Like, people are so used to it. They've become so adapted and accustomed to growing up in an atmosphere like that that that's what's normal to them. During the time when radio came out, the same thing happened. They didn't want advertisements on there. Go back even further. In the first newspapers, people were appalled when people started trying to sell things in newspapers. And when newspapers actually started trying to print things about death or hangings or bad things that happened, they were called out by all the other media by being like, oh, these are the dirt bags of the media. Because there was a time when people had values, integrity, and morals. And I'm not going to tie that into religion, even though a lot of folks would bring that into the picture because a lot of religious people are very hoity-toity and do have that kind of attitude. But it wasn't just the religious. It was just common people who had decency. Because when they walk outside, they went to, and interacted with other people out in the world. If you didn't treat others with respect, you were going to get your ass kicked. At the very least, you were going to get put in your place. But the internet allowed a whole new avenue for people to complain. And the reason why in the late, say mid 90s to early 2000s, the internet had a lot of toxic shit, but it also had a lot of kindness, a lot of people really sharing and doing things. A lot of you might remember the early YouTube where it was nothing but tutorials. Like if I watch woodworking videos today, it's not a guy doing a woodworking project and showing you how to do it. It's a guy showing off all his fucking tools, giving you the bare clips with these nice angled shots and super fancy bokeh and awesome lenses on their cameras and perfect lighting, and then they stop halfway through so they can sell you the product they're selling you. Like, it was not like this. Everybody is selling you something. Everybody is selling you something, and that, my friends, is why everything sucks today. Because it's hard to find authentic people. It's hard to find honesty and integrity in this world. When you find it, my God, peeps, hang on to it. If you find good people out there, hang on to them as friends, as acquaintances, family, whoever it might be. The people, I'm not talking about just honest people, but people who are honest to themselves. You know what I mean? There's a certain segment of society, that's constantly hunting for more and yearning for some sort of a a never-ending supply of dopamine, right? Just whatever it might be. And I think we're all kind of on that page, but for some folks, it's they're willing to actually step on family and friends to make a buck, and that's fucked up to me. I see there's 15 of you in here, and there's only one like, so hit the like button, damn it. And then I'm going to continue on my path of discussion here, because I've only got to number one out of like fucking however many got on my list here. Why does everything suck? Okay, number one, the internet. I got that covered. Number two, jobs. When I was younger, we were promised that if you got a good job, it could lead you into a career. That career could put you in a great position where, hey man, you could move up in the ladder and get paid great and get a good salary, and then you could retire after 40 years and you could get your social security and collect your 401k. Now, even as a kid, that sounded horrible to me. Even as I became an adult, it sounded even worse to me. That's not the life I want to live. I'm not going to tie myself into one employer for 40 years for some fucking retirement plan. I mean, that's basically your whole fucking life. But for some people that find the right job, it's a phenomenal protection. But that's gone now. It's destroyed. It's not just manufacturing. It's not the fact that Uber's taking over taxis or that cars are made in automated factories, but the fact that people are being treated, have always been treated like numbers, but now it's so much worse. And now people aren't even being treated as employees, the ones who do work for people. These are the guys who will hire employees, pay them as cheaply as they can, then work them at 30, 35 hours a week so they can not have to pay them insurance or any type of benefits. Or Uber drivers who have to pay for their own fucking gas, their own cars, and they look at all this money they made one night and they think, oh, that's not bad. Then they look at gas and they look at the mileage and their car breaks down. And, these are things that were taken care of. There used to be company vehicles, you could get a dependable job. And the jobs are out there. That's not the problem. A lot of people say, why don't people want to work? People do want to work. They just want to be respected. They want to be honored for the efforts they put in and not be treated like shit. I mean, is that so much to ask, really? So the jobs, they're shit. There's no future, there's no respect. And that's why number two is the jobs. Jobs suck. Number three, as far as the everything list sucks list, and I got lots of them, believe me. And I want to make this point before I continue that this isn't it's a complaint session, but done for the sake of hopeful improvement. A lot of people complain and they want to bitch about everything. The solution is to not let these things bother you, to be able to work around them, because it's ultimately okay. If you're fighting against society, you're fighting against the way things are. You're just wasting time. You're spinning your wheels. So many people have these, this their nose in the air and this attitude that things are going to change for them. It just doesn't work that way. You've got to work with what you've got. So when people complain about capitalism or the system, it's like, make it work for you. Fine, make a bunch of money and then give it away if that's what means a lot to you. If you're so smart and you understand how it really works, then make a bunch of that money and give it to people who need it. A lot of people are all talk, right? And the internet's really, I guess, really pushed that forward. Basically, it's like a bunch of empty discussions. Continuing on my list in number three here, it's music and movies. Now, this one's a little more difficult because there are a lot more movies and music than there ever was before. With the internet, it brought connections of bands that we never could have heard. So don't get me wrong. There's plenty of good shit out there. But anything that's considered mainstream or pop or, Marvel movies or reboots of whatever, franchise it might be, Star Wars, whatever it might be this week, the whole Disney thing. At one time, when things got really rough, you could fall back into some good new tunes or a good movie. And now it seems like everybody's being played like idiots with simpler and simpler ideas. And I expected society might become a little more complex in its thinking over time. I mean, how wrong was I? And I guess that sounds pretty arrogant. I'm not saying I know better than others, but fuck, I know better than most of the people I run into, it seems like. It's like, what are you even thinking? How can you live this way, treating people the way that some people treat others? It's just absurd to me. But anyhow, the movies and music are a reflection of that culture, which hasn't changed. Yeah, when I was younger, I listened to NWA, Fuck the Police. I loved that tune. I loved uh, a lot of brutal music, but not that I ever agreed with. It's funny growing up with heavy metal and having, the adults say, oh, they're screaming about death and destruction, not understanding the lyrics because I'm a metalhead too. And you listen to a Slayer song and you think they're talking about killing people, but really they're actually saying, don't go to war, don't go fight for your country to kill your brothers and sisters. It's crazy the message and how much it gets separated. But point here was that back in the 80s, there was a lot of political music and metal, like, Megadeth and Anthrax, Slayer. They were all Metallica. They were all singing in politics, talking about these various topics. And then you think it was like an evolution of music, and now it's just still all about bitches and hoes in the rap game. Like, I honestly don't listen to any modern rap except a couple artists I like. Yeah, a few guys, There's I like Prof. I'm very picky about the rap that I like, and there's some good shit out there, but it has to have a pulse. It has to have a heart. You know what I'm getting at? It's the same way with anything else, and I feel like so much of that is gone. So that's enough about the movies and music, but the fact that they suck means there's nothing to fall back on. It's almost like even the things that we used to fall in love with, looking forward to a new album or a new movie. It's just that part of it's gone. So um, that's my first three. Everything sucks. And before I go any further, I wanted to just catch up and say hello to everybody. Spy balloon over Montana. No, I have not. Good to see you, Leonard and Yo and Freestyler. Good to see you. Right on. And Satellite Man. Good to see you. Leonard says Black Sabbath War Pigs. Nice. Believe it or not, War Pigs is the only song. Killing in the name of. He just says. I was gonna say that. Actually, I was listening to. I was listening to those guys the other day, and I was thinking of just about how Rage Against the Machine, just how intense they are. Their politics are just so intense. But it's funny, as I got older, I started looking at a lot of the political type bands, especially a lot of the punk bands, and being like, okay, come on, like a complete dismissal of any type of progress, and an insult, as if capitalism is our only problem in the world. And it's weird. I don't know. And this is something I wanted to say before I go too much further here. When I talk about everything sucking today, I realized that before I even made this, I thought, old man screams at clouds, right? It's easy to say that maybe a person just is getting older and things are changing. So I've been thinking that for like the last 10 years. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe things are just. This is a cultural shift. Everything's changing all the time. No, I really feel like it's going to shit. And I feel like people are losing their minds, becoming neurotic, becoming weak, complaining about everything. There's a huge decline in just basic intellect in discussions, which is sad because I think that should be something that's universally worked towards. But those who do have the smarts tend to just chastise others and put people down. It's like we've lost this ability to have empathy for each other. And maybe the internet is partly due to that, or the cause of that. I don't know, but one big issue and one reason things really suck today, that there's a lot of crime and theft. Now, I can't chalk that one up to just saying it's reported more. I think anybody who lives in or near any major city can attest to the fact that crime has gone up significantly in the last several years, especially the last few years. And you can blame whatever you want, but the fact is it's happening. I mean, in Oregon, it's due to the policies that they have in place of not having enough public defenders. So they have to let people go. You can only lock them up for a certain amount of time, and if you don't have representation for them, you've got to let them go. So we got people still in jail for weed and drugs, and then you've got, not in Oregon because it's decriminalized for that reason, but in many places there's people still in jail for weed, and Meanwhile, people are getting out on, abuse and charges of beating people and carjacking just because there's not enough lawyers. And the fact that there's needles all over the roads and the streets, the corners, there's tents all over the sidewalks. It doesn't really lend to a comfortable city for people to walk in. Having empathy for the homeless and realizing there's a big problem are, they're not mutually exclusive. You can feel bad for people who are in a bad situation and also be frustrated with the situation itself. Um, yeah, I guess it depends on where you live, and ultimately things only suck as much as we can see it from our doorstep, I guess. The issue of inflation, globalization, the fact that we don't manufacture anything anymore in the US and that everything's just being made overseas. We saw that the weakness of that in the supply chain during COVID and how we couldn't get access to a lot of the things that we previously could access. And this is why having homegrown, not just food, but items, protective equipment, whatever it might be, is extremely important. And the U.S. is kind of lost, fallen by the wayside on that one. Um, so the fact that we're paying so much more, I hear a lot of people talking about eggs. Eggs haven't gone up that much here where I live, fortunately. I saw them in the store for $2 a dozen. So I guess some people are saying they're up to like $6 or $7 a dozen. I don't know where they're at, but I believe it. I think it was maybe in Canada, but yeah, inflation goes on for many different reasons. I know the egg thing is different. There was a bird flu, whatever, yada yada. There's always a story. The point is, you're paying more at the pump. You're paying more for bread, more for everything now, and that's sucky when wage is not keeping up with inflation. And it's just sad that we haven't really seen these things yet. That people still side with their own oppressors. It's weird. I mean, it's psychologically it makes sense, but I don't know. Hmm. Says checking out Deca. I'll check them out. Thank you. Um, what was I gonna say next? The food. Oh man, the food. So there was a lot of confusion when I was younger. Okay. Organic food was not even a thing when I was a kid, right? It was, of course, there was organic food. It just wasn't labeled as some sort of a premium product. Um, it was only really later on when people started demanding things that weren't made with particular insecticides, GMOs, whatever it might be. And in some way, some part of the process, we overreacted to some things. Like, and for example, if we got rid of all genetically modified crops today, like tomorrow we just stopped planting any GMO seeds, okay, the world would half the world would starve. Okay, maybe not half the world, but millions of people would starve, unable to get any food because we've basically set ourselves up. It's like saying let's get rid of the internet tomorrow. Like we are so tied into the system we have that there's no turning back. Whether things are good or bad isn't the question because it's too late. But now we're stuck in a world where we have to wonder if what's on our plate is good for us, whether it has cancer causing agents, maybe later on in life we'll discover, or whether that next steak you get is gonna be lab grown meat, dude. I just I just I can't get past this lab grown meat thing. Like, no thank you. No thank you. Um, Pretty soon there will be fucking movements trying to declare that lab grown meat has a soul, and it'll be the same fight all over again. The point is, when you see the world for what it really is, everything eats something, right? And when you die, you go into the grass and you fertilize the grass so the animals can eat it, and that's the circle of life. That's just the way it is. People argue about whether we should or shouldn't eat meat. That's not even a discussion here. I just think that it comes down to common sense practices. learning how to respectfully harvest what we want to consume, and doing the most justice we can to our environment while doing it. And it seems people are incapable of even seeing things that simply. That society is at a standstill, even after all the progress we've made and understanding of evolution, and we're still questioning the value of what we should or should not eat, right? And I don't. I guess I've realized that no matter how much knowledge or information we have about our environment, some people just won't want to listen or care. And I don't honestly really give a shit what other people do with their lives as far as if people choose to eat something, not eat something. It's the fact that people are pointing the finger at others and telling them how to live. And that's what it comes down to. This is the big problem I have here, because none of the things that I've said, I don't care if people make shitty music. I don't care if people have shitty jobs that they are hiring people for. I don't care if the internet sucks. I don't care if there's worse crime or any of these things until they affect me, right? And this is where we get right down to it. We're all selfish deep down inside. And we want to protect our own family as best we can and ourselves in order to live this life without being as damaged. And I thought about this the other day. What are the basic needs for people? What do we really need? I couldn't come up with anything except health and family. And I was like, okay, well, I started thinking about Maslow's like hierarchy of needs, which is food, water, and shelter, and then you have companionship or community, whatever it might be. All that shit doesn't matter. Food, water, and shelter are all just to protect your health. So all that can be put into health. And then you've got community, connections. Well, if you have, and purpose and all that, if you have a family and you're raising kids, that can be your purpose. So my point is here that for some people, just having health and family is really all that matters. And we overcomplicate what we really need as humans. We we don't seem to understand that culture is. We want to be part of something bigger, but often that leads us down some dark paths. We have a lot of problems. Not to mention fentanyl's in all the drugs now. At least you could get, back when I was younger, you could get some good shit, right? Now you just have to wonder if it's contaminated. That sounds like a minor inconvenience, but if you consume substances, it's not. And everybody should have the right to consume what they choose, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, I gotta stand up for a minute. Well, I think I've complained quite a bit here, but I'm not done yet. Oh. I know that, as I've already mentioned, everyone's complaining about everything. Sure, let them complain. The fact is, if we listen, and we're the ones who are to blame for listening to all the bullshit. Like my buddy texted me something earlier about a politician, Omar or something, and I was just like, I don't really care what anybody said about Israel or what's going on with particular people. And I started thinking about how each person's exposed to different people, different topics, depending on who they hear it from, and what news they got that from. Even though the media is the enemy, everybody gets the same information from the media because that's where everybody hears everything. Then they put their own spin on it and their own twist and say that it's truth or news or alternative news. But it's not news. It's really shit that doesn't affect my life, and so I try to avoid it. But it got me thinking about how culture, developing culture, has been replaced by virtue signaling. And people want to tell you that they're a kind person. They want to tell you that they give to charity. They want to tell you that they're helping out other cultures, or that they're an ally or a friend to certain groups. Truth is, I don't give a fuck. I really don't. It's not an issue of how many good things you can tell people you do. It's kind of a lead by example type thing. So it's just nothing more annoying than people who kind of scoff at other folks and say, you should be part of this group and you should believe this. You should be more of a fighter against climate change, or you should be doing this. It's like, don't buy into their bullshit. There's a lot of times to tell people to fuck off. I want to tell you that one of the strangest things happened before I started this live cast, okay? I went on YouTube to go to the live cast thing, to select it, to turn it on. And I noticed that I had a comment on an old video, so I clicked on it. The most recent comment I just got a few minutes before I started this, it was on a video called Why the Internet Sucks Today. And it was the weirdest thing, because I've only really made one video like that, maybe two out of all the videos I've made. Somebody happened to comment on the one that I made a year ago, and they said, thanks for making this. How strange. It's one person, authentic, talking behind a camera without any background music or special effects. And then it said, it's kind of like, well, ... the old internet. And I thought it was just the perfect comment to companion, what I was thinking when I started this. That was what I missed too. And we always miss the old ways things were, but it's not about things being older just because it's nostalgic. It's because it was better when things were more interesting. I mean, all of us know how YouTube's gone downhill. Same old shit. YouTube sucks today. You scroll down and it's just scroll, the same crap. I mean, anybody who's used YouTube autoplay knows that half the time a video will come on that, well, you've already seen. Or maybe it's a video that was made 10 years before and you don't even realize because they make it look like it's new. Or, it's a sponsor, or God forbid, a 35-minute commercial in the middle of a 5-minute video. Happens all the time now, and they just don't give a shit. Or an entire rap song in the middle of a like, it's garbage and it's very hard. And sure, yeah, if you've got like ad blocker like I do out here, then you don't get ads. But that's not the point. The point is that it wasn't always like that. It wasn't about the ad revenue. It was about everybody had an equal footing and equal chance to post something and have it be noticed or be discussed. But that's gone. Way gone. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all these places, they're all controlled. And I mean, God, even Daddy Elon admitted that he, with the blue check mark $8 thing, that those would be the preferred posts and pushed to the top, where other discussions that he doesn't like will be pushed to the bottom. Like, that's basically exactly what we're trying to avoid. Everybody who says something should have equal footing. I'm not saying that people should be able to make hateful remarks and be boosted up to the top, but I think that we're losing something very authentic right now. And I feel like we're really on the cusp of losing it permanently. It's scary. All it takes is one generation that's not taught any real values for everything to just fall apart. I mean, that's how simple it really is. It doesn't matter how many books or stories we have about how things used to be or how things may or may not have worked. When the victors write all the books, when, history is written by the victors, right? You find out all the time that you hear stories that maybe aren't quite the story that you thought they were. Imagine how much truth is twisted about things that you think you know, about things that we've been told. Think about Hunter Biden's laptop was called a conspiracy, and everybody was called a nutcase for talking about it. Then this morning, the New York Post came out and said he admitted it was his, right? Like, what happens when people are accusing people of believing all this shit and claiming that they're nutcases, and then find out that maybe what we thought wasn't true is true? Well, back in the 60s, do you think that more doctors really smoked Camels? Or were they just paid by R.J. Reynolds and, I don't know. It seems that people are consistently fooled, whether it be, by the smoking industry, by the sugar industry, by the meat packing industry, by, oh God, you name it. Everybody's out to make a buck. Oil companies, pharmaceutical companies. Oh my God, don't even get me started on the Sacklers. Yes, and they're the ones from Purdue Pharma that created OxyContin, which devastated millions of people's lives. If you're unaware, Purdue Pharma and the whole OxyContin situation, that wasn't something that they just didn't foresee. They were well aware, and there are internal documents to show that they knew it was extremely addictive. And we've had two or three different opioid crises in history. One right before World War One, and the only reason it ended was because they needed this, because a lot of people went to war, and because the supplies dried up because of the war. We also had a huge opioid epidemic after the Civil War. Soldiers were coming back addicted to morphine. And laudanum was a very popular drink back then. So let's just say that we have major pharmaceutical industries who are allowed to make a product that they knew was extremely addictive, extremely dangerous, and still put it on the shelves and addicting and killing people who were taking it for maybe just a broken leg or something, you know. And nobody's ever punished. They just move all their money to offshore accounts. If I were to sell bad drugs on the corner and somebody got hurt, I would go to prison for it. If a major industry does it in white coats, they have lawyers take care of it. And that, my friends, is the world we live in. So, it's, wow, it's already been 40 minutes. I need to go through the comments real quick. I'm going to move this light. It's kind of bright. Oh, that's a little better. Yeah. My phone, I use my phone for my camera and it really sucks, so sorry. Yo says they should have free drug tests at clinics. Actually, a lot of places here, even in the Portland area, they have bars. A few local bars that have participated have fentanyl test strips that they will give out for free there. So you can get them. It's just that people don't access them or know. And yeah, they're great to have. If you go to most music festivals, they'll have testing booths. In Europe, at Shambhala, they actually have a mass spectrometer and a gas chromatography setup, like a full MSGS setup, where it's like, I think that's what it is. Yeah, mass spectrometry, gas spectrometer, something like that. Where, yeah, they can do extremely accurate testing on drugs and get a full layout of pretty much everything that's in them. And they'll do it for free. They'll test it, they'll talk to you about it. And so they're basically safe areas to do shit. And but I have mixed feelings because I believe in testing drugs at, say, a music festival. You go there, you want to make sure your acid is pure, you want to make sure that you're whatever you're taking, you want to make sure it's what you think it is, right? That's okay, because you're at an event, you're doing something that's fun, and that's a great place. You want to be safe, you want to be comfortable in the environment, and then you go home and you go back to your life, right? Well, it's totally different than having clinics on the street where people can walk in and get free needles. We watched this video the other day. The guy just walks in seeing what he could get. He walked out with an entire box full of hypodermic needles, syringes, tie-off strings, everything you can possibly imagine. And they were even selling like fucking smoking pipes and all kinds of shit. Just giving it to people to try to promote like safe drug use. And 10 years ago, I thought this was a good solution to the problems that we have with drugs. And I've reversed my decision. I've been provided with new information because it was a newer thing. It's only been, say, 10 years since they've had these safe areas to do drugs up in Canada and down here in Portland and down in Cali, and it's not working. It's not working in any way, shape, or form. Anyone who tells you that these walk-in places to get free needles and drug shit is actually stopping or helping the problem is completely delusional, and it's, I think, working against us. And it brings me back to like this tough love approach. You know, if you walk downtown in a place that you pay taxes, you work your ass off, you know, you're working every day, you're just trying to live in your house, and then you've got homeless people camped on your sidewalk, right? And you just, all right, I can deal with that, right? Then you walk down the street and you get harassed by a homeless guy, or somebody pisses or shits on your car, but I mean, this stuff happens all the time. I almost got hurt. I've almost been accosted twice. The last 2 times out of 3 I went to Portland, I just happened to almost bump into somebody. One guy, I walked past his tent, which was blocking the whole sidewalk, and I must have like skimmed the edge of it barely. I mean, if I did, it must. He's like screaming down the corner, "You motherfucking blah blah." It's like, okay. My wife just says ignore him, and I did. Just kept walking. It's not worth it. It really isn't. But why should I put up with that shit? This is my town too, right? Things have changed, okay? And there's only a certain amount of patience people have for not just talking about homeless people. I'm talking about the criminal element and the horrendous people who get away with it and make everybody else look bad. The guys who were stealing my kid's bike out of the yard, that kind of stuff, or driving around in like nice trucks, like stealing people's shit. Like it's out of hand, and it should be taken out of hand. You should be able to cut off a finger every time somebody's caught. When I was younger and I thought about that, when I was taught that people in the Middle East would cut off a finger, way back when, I thought that's fucking brutal. Like, how primitive, right? No, I totally get it. I remember hearing a story. Now, don't quote me on this because I cannot recall which tribe, but I believe it was the Inuits. Might be wrong on that. And it might not even be true. But apparently, in this one Inuit tribe, let's say, way up in North Alaska, they, the kind of tribe that lives off of, like whales, and that's it, pretty much all they've got. Where food is very scarce, limited, and they have to harvest a certain amount of, whale blubber and whatnot to get them through the winter. And it was an article years ago talking about how different cultures deal with psychosis or sociopaths, or rather psychopaths, sociopaths. Before you could define it, let's just say the kind of people who, no matter what you do, they make trouble and make others' lives miserable. It said that they would take them out on a hunt, and they would go out on their first hunt because they learned how to identify these people pretty quickly in their own tribes. They would take them out on a hunt, and they would go to the seawall edge looking for seals, and they would push the people off. And my first thought was, damn, dude. I mean, I can see it. I can totally see it. If one person's causing trouble for the whole tribe, and there's nothing you can do about it, why sacrifice everybody else's happiness? Why take the chance one guy's going to steal food or, be completely selfish when you need each other? You need to get rid of the ones who aren't pulling their weight. And that sounds harsh, and it is, but I stand by it, and that's how I feel. That's why so many younger people today that are complaining about others, blaming everything on white people or everything on men or whatever it might be. I'm the worst of all the worlds, okay? I'm a blonde, 6'2" white man, right? I get no respect. Rodney Dangerfield. Because I don't have a say in anything cultural, right? Any racial discussions, any sex discussions as far as gender, any of that. I'm not allowed to talk about those things. And I think that that's kind of interesting that that's the world we're living in right now. That it's like, as I said, this is where I got from at the beginning what I started talking about, how the culture has shifted so much that people almost want revenge on each other for something that never even happened to them. So young people, let's say, are angry about what happened to their ancestors, and so they're mad at people right in front of their faces because of what their ancestors did to their ancestors. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine actually talking down on a person because of something that happened 200 years ago from completely unrelated human beings that you never met in your life? Think about how many of us fucking are frustrated with our own parents and how many of them were frustrated with their parents. Do you think any of us would agree with what our great grandparents were up to? I gotta say, man, there's a lot of blame being thrown around. Just put it that way. I'll read through the comments real quick here to see if anybody else has joined and say hello. Hey Keith. Happy Thursday to you too, my friend. He said, you all done working this week? This is your Friday, right? Yes, it is. Yeah, that's why I decided to do it at 7:19 on a Thursday, because it's my Friday. And I actually came home a little early today because I woke up this morning and I felt really spacey, kind of crappy, and just wasn't feeling well. And I went to work anyway because my boss said, oh, he didn't want to leave, whatever. He had to go do some shit, and so I went for like a half day and came home. And it was one of those days where I just felt really off. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're just slightly outside of yourself. It's weird stuff. Being human is weird. Like, when I'm feeling coherent and reasonable and rational and normal, and I don't have a headache or a stomach ache and my body doesn't hurt, like, it's something we take for granted sometimes. Like, oh, I feel good right now. You don't notice it till you feel bad. Yeah, kind of fucked up. Hot Retarded says they act like aliens. Who acts like aliens? Why God? Who's God? I've never met God. I don't believe he's there. You there, God? Strike me down with the lightning bolt if you're there. Eh, coward. God's a coward. Yo says, how do people behave on par with Hitler become rich? That behave on par with Hitler become rich and praised? Ah, great question. Because they have confidence. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's confidence and enough arrogance to convince yourself that what you're saying is true. You see, when people are infamous, people like Hitler and some of the most infamous people in history, they really believed what they were saying, and they pushed it hard. Most rational people who are thinking people who mean no harm don't try to fool other people, therefore they don't want to be in charge. This is why we don't have philosopher kings, because philosophers are smart enough to not want to be kings. That's my take on it anyway. Ah, yes, 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 yes. An eye for an eye. Yeah, that's funny you say that, Keith. He says an eye for an eye, and I wanted to bring that up because I don't remember who said it. It's a famous quote. They say I think it might have been Gandhi. He said if we always go for an eye for an eye, then the world would be blind. And it's so damn true. I mean, let me just say this. There's nothing more divine in my life personally, because I can only speak for myself. One of the most rewarding things that I've done in my life when it comes to dealing and coping with bullshit is learning to forgive. I've had people steal from me, lie to me, cheat me, ripping off family heirlooms literally from my bedroom because I let them stay there because I felt bad for them because they didn't have anywhere to stay. Stealing things that they knew were my dead dad's that had just passed away a couple of years before. Like, shit that's just so bad. And, the and even though I knew they were tweaking and they were having problems, I ended up forgiving people. I had two different friends who did that, and other friends who did all kinds of stupid shit. Uh, you know, Forgiving people for their mistakes is the most important thing that we can do for our own sanity. And I want to make this clear. Like, if there's anything I could say in this video, I'm not here to just complain about everything sucking. My intent is to put forth solutions, because there is a solution to all the things I talked about that suck. Jobs, music, crime, the homeless problems, the food, the farming, GMOs, chemtrails, we're all going to die. In reality, you can turn off the TV, put your fucking phone down, and 99% of this shit goes away instantly. And here would be my thing that I would say, my only advice to somebody who says, the world's driving me crazy, there's so much bad shit going on. I would say, and I know there's exceptions to this that wouldn't work. If you live in downtown Atlanta, you're not going to be able to get away from it, right? But if you, or in fucking New Orleans, which I think they should just fill that place in and bury it. No offense to anyone living there, but it's just going to continue to be inundated with water. And I guess they had the worst crime ever, like 280 carjackings out of like 600 stolen cars. Like almost half of them were carjackings. I was like, Jesus Christ. But anyway, sorry. My point was to go outside and take a walk. Say hi to a few people. Go to a local park. This is advice that goes to every single human being, except the guy that can't walk because he's a paraplegic. So fucking take your wheelchair down there. Doesn't matter, whatever it takes, Even if you can't move, even if you can't go anywhere, just turn off the TV for a while and look outside, out the window. How many times have you been scrolling or watching something and had somebody come up and ask you a question? Maybe it's somebody who doesn't matter to you. Or maybe it's your own kids or your parents or your wife or husband. And you're like so into what you're doing, you don't even look up. Like, I see it all the fucking time. How many times are you in a group of friends where there's the one guy that just cannot put his fucking phone down? Just constantly wants to show you a picture of this or that or a link. It's like, put the phone down. Don't worry about what's going on in the rest of the world. And ask yourself, what is the world really like outside my door? Now, if you can walk outside and go down the street, say hi to your neighbor, go to the park, come back and have civil conversation with someone locally, I say you're doing okay. You have a community center where people go. Maybe you have a local garden, a local park. And man, I think people really overlook this. They're constantly looking for the negative. You're not looking for the silver lining like, oh, I live in a good place. You say, look at what's going on over there. You know how many people that I've heard talk shit about Portland in the last couple of years, ever since the riots? Like, Portland's done. Oh man, you guys over there, you that place is trashed. I'm like, have you ever been there? Well, no, I'm on the East Coast. I'm like, okay, so you've never been to Portland in your life, and you're reading about it on the internet. Okay, um, look, like I said, I've gone down there and had issues, but the parks are fine. Look, the city is okay. It's not gone. It would take a small amount of effort to deal with the issues. It's just that we have issues that are going to invade all major cities. But I don't live in Portland. I actually live over the bridge in Vancouver, Washington, which is a little better. But it's starting to get as bad as was told it was. I always heard that it was worse over here, and then when I moved here, it was nice little suburb area. But it's getting busier, and my wife and I have been looking for land for a long time, so hopefully we find the right one at the right time that we can afford. So, anyway, my point to that was to answer the. Well, I guess it wasn't a question. I was just talking about imagining. Imagine. Satellite Man says the fundamentals are being forgotten and the fabric of humanity is being torn apart. Um, yeah, I'm curious about that one myself about the fundamentals because that's I'd have to be able to identify what the fundamentals were, and I guess that's maybe where we disagree, especially where there's an impasse between say Christians and atheists, that kind of thing. But secularism is getting along a little better, than it with religion than it used to. I think we're all starting to realize we see things in our own way, but um, script making says, as Albert Camus puts it, the only real question is in this fundamentally meaningless life is that of a suicide. I shouldn't even say that word, right? I get instantly censored and actually demonetized the minute I say that word, but it's too late now. That's a serious issue that I've been wanting to talk about because I believe that people who take their life into their own hands there's part of me who has a strong empathy and part of me that has a strong disgust and lack of empathy. I, Whenever I say I think of it as a selfish act, people look at me with disgust. But I've learned being honest about how I feel is important, and I tried to explain this actually to my wife the other day because I was saying, I'm disgusted. I think it's the last selfish act of a selfish person, with the exception of people who are in extreme pain. I'm talking about the guy who maybe his business gets shut down and he takes his own shit. He's got 3 kids he leaves behind. Like you're a dirtbag. You signed up to take care of your children, and you left your family behind because you couldn't cope. The reason why I consider that selfish is because I feel like if we normalize it and accept it and make it normalized, then people will think it's okay. And it's not okay. It's not a normal behavior of human beings. No other animal does this. Not even lemmings, whatever you've been told. It's not a thing that happens because we are fighters, all of us, and we have to be. It's just in our genetics. It's just who we are. It doesn't mean you have to fight if you're suffering. It just means you don't give up over something as trivial and dumb as a social thing, a construct. You know what I mean? Otherwise, healthy people. It's really messed up. Alom, good to see ya. He says, we are so disconnected from our somatic regulation. Sounds like magnesium deficiency or an inflammatory flare. Yeah, I'm sure there's a million metaphors that could relate to that as far as health-wise to the body, to kind of the social mind, which, I used to talk a lot more about kind of not just the Gaian hypothesis of the Earth being conscious, but rather the humans being the cells along this planet. The discussion every stoner has when he's tripping with his friends when he's a kid. Man, maybe we're just cells floating on a membrane. I actually believe it to be real. I think that we are interconnected as, if any, for anyone who's been watching The Last of Us, that show, I've been a cordyceps fan, taking it for years, and I think that movie's great and does a great justice to the plant. The fungus. No offense to cordyceps, but fungus really do communicate instantly through these neural networks of mycelium. The largest organism on Earth is in Eastern Oregon, and it's like a 26 acre, yeah, maybe bigger. It's 126 acres. It's huge. It's this one honey mushroom underground that's infected the entire forest. So if there's a forest fire on one side of the forest, the mushrooms and the mycelium that are in the trees can sense that, send a signal through the mycelium all the way to the other side of the hill, to the other part of the forest, and then those trees can start to produce, either take up more moisture or do what they need to do to protect themselves from fire danger. It's pretty amazing. The point I was going to make with that is that it doesn't even have to be that fungal connection. There is an invisible filament connection between us all. To That's why people can pick up other people's thoughts and ideas. I know it sounds like hocus pocus, and there's not enough science and hard data to really prove how it works. We know that the brain puts out signals that can be barely measured, but they say not enough to really interfere with anyone else. But then we have crazy people reading people's minds in weird times and weird situations. It's very hard to dispute that there's some weird shit that goes on. And I think this is important because I think the reason we're afraid to acknowledge this is because if we believe we're all connected, we believe that we're all connected to nature. And that puts us as one with nature instead of being something separate. And for so long, people have been taught that they are separate from nature, that God created them, for example, as something special, and you're not special. I mean, crows are smarter than a lot of humans. Corvids are amazingly smart. I mean, over the last 20 years, we've learned so much more about animal intelligence. It's, I mean, anybody who's ever had animals, anybody who has pets, cats and dogs, knows how smart they are when you live with them. They know words, they understand, they can pick up on your language, but when you start to really teach them, crows can solve some puzzles that humans can't. They see things differently. So when you talk about intelligence, not to get too far off topic, but we're connected to all of nature. And that's why, to me, church, instead of walking in the doors of someone's building for them to tell me what God wants, I can walk out those doors into the woods behind the church and probably get more than my fill of spiritual teachings and understanding. And that means nothing against the person who chooses church. I think we all need to see things from our own perspectives and try to get along as best we can. I'm gonna flip fucking down here. Make sure my phone's still plugged in. There we go. It's kind of falling off my stand because it's everything I have sucks. Yeah. Oh, I can't vape because then I'll probably be, you know he's there, says HRC. Who's there? If you're talking about God, God's not a guy. God is an alien. Confidence is key, says Sandra. It's good to see you, Sandra. Stay in the light. Just joining from the top. The ground beneath feet is always where we start. Indeed. But I would say staying in the light is important. But delving into the darkness is equally important. You got to be able to acknowledge your own darkness. Really, I think that's one of the things that helped me understand myself better was to acknowledge and I don't really have dark thoughts or anything. It's not like that. When people talk about darkness, they don't mean your murderous side or something. It just means acknowledge that things aren't what you would like them to be. That we're all born, and like Alan Watts says, if you want to know what it's like after you die, just remember what it was like before you were born. Even to people who believe in reincarnation. I mean, I know several people who believe in reincarnation, and usually I bite my tongue, but I often have to say something like, oh, okay, well, if you're going to bring that up, then explain how this works and this works. I was like, well, who were you in your previous life? I was like, I don't know. It's like, well, then how do you know you're learning the lesson? You know, that's the whole thing. It's this circular argument of we're eternal, but we just started. coming to the realization, that realization was probably one of the most important in my life because it taught me not to fucking worry about death. Because when you can conquer that, knowing it will come, no matter what you do, you can't stop it, don't try to stop it. Just be able to live a good life. Not a long life, a good life. If you can live a good long life, then you're doing pretty good. Believe me, I always wanted to live to be 100. Now I'm just saying, I just hope to live to be a ripe old age where I'm ready, and in the meantime, I want to get some shit done. I want to talk with people and interact and meet people and do things. I want to buy a piece of land and raise my kids in the forest instead of having them grow up near the city. And the time just goes by so fast. And everything sucks today, so it makes it that much harder. Oh shit! So yeah, catch up on comments real quick here. Um, yeah, I agree what you're talking, Keith, about talking with friends and family in person. Chris says, I live on the East Coast and visited Oregon in September and fell in love with it. It is a beautiful place. It really is. Um, there's so much to see in Oregon that's not Portland. But even Portland has some beautiful places. The Rose Gardens are gorgeous. But like Washington Park, Forest Park's huge. And all you hear about is somebody that got hurt or killed there or raped or something. It's like you can't get away from the bad news. But in reality, most people find Oregon to be gorgeous, but I'm not going to recommend Washington, but I am going to say that I really like it here better. I grew up going to all the Oregon mountains and traveling up into the woods and shit there. As soon as I moved to Washington, I checked out Mount Adams and a lot more places by the Olympic Forest, and it is so awesome. And I wish I could afford to buy like mass acreage out here, but it's too expensive, so yeah, it's tricky. Aaron, or Anon delivers, says, why do you think every time an honest grassroots form of expression is born, say like punk or hip hop, it always gets watered down and corrupted as time passes? That is I guess to come off the top of my head here, it would be, what do you call them? Why can't I think of those guys' names? Oh, the hipster effect, okay? The hipsters, right? Back in the 90s, I would say that the hipsters were born out of the grunge era. It's nobody ever really identifies the roots of this, but yeah, grunge. I was a grunge kid, okay? I loved Nirvana, grew up listening to that shit, wearing all kinds of baggy pants and flannel shirts. I'm still wearing flannel shirts. Um, Before they were in style again. And I found that hmm, I think that the hipster movement was about trying to get away from social things that are popular. And so, therefore, hipster became popular in its own right. People wanted to look so different that they ended up all looking the same. And I think that's what happens with a lot of good shit. It gets watered down and corrupted, but really it's just because it goes mainstream and there's a bunch of people trying to sell out on it. But the good shit's still out there. You just got to find it. There's still good punk. There's still good hip hop. Like No Effects, they've always been true to themselves. They're still a great punk band. Um, yeah, because they started their own label. I mean, they sang about bad labels and shit. Punk, I gotta say, is one genre that really it holds their own most of the time. But hip hop, on the other hand, there's hip hop and then there's hip slop, slip slop crap. I don't know what the fuck you would call it. It's the shit that you see all over. I guess YouTube commercials. I even see it. Like people buy commercial time, ad time. So a random rap song comes on in the middle of a philosophy discussion or something. Then a commercial comes on and it's this dude rapping about stupid as shit. Like, I mean, hell, I even used to listen to Too Short. He's the worst rapper ever, but I love him, right? I mean, his lyrics were horrible. He was totally uneducated, or if he was really playing a dumbass. But when you're young and you hear it, it sounds good and it sounds funny, and the beats were good, and it was always about the beats for me. So honestly, most hip hop lyrics don't really move me, but I like a lot of the older stuff. I've always been a rap hip hop fan, and I just ignore the stuff that becomes watered down and mainstream. But I even like some of it, and maybe we just become too raw to things that are popular. Decide we don't like them because they're popular. That's the mentality of the hipster. So, hello, Adam. It's good to see you. Up, see? Just talking about crows. Crows are great. My favorite Cohen was what was my face before my parents were born. Logic says, I can't believe it's already Thursday. Yeah, I know, man. I can't either. I said, well, I'm just going to make a video. And I was like, I should just do a live one because it's fucking Thursday. Might as well. Keith, I agree with you. It is good to know that there are some good things out there. Do you have any tip on 8 weeks or more kratom stop wait time? What do you mean by that? Any tip on 8 weeks or more kratom stop wait time? You ordering some? I don't know what you mean. Yeah, you'll have to word that differently. Industry and commercialization. Hey, Humble, it's good to see you, my friend. Campbell's. Where were we? Cool, I'm caught up. Glad to see you, Josh. Thanks, Pete. It's good to see you, too. Humble says there's still guys putting out great instrumental hip-hop with analog equipment, such as Damu, the Fudge Monk. Nice, I'll check that out. And that's good to say. Great point. I have a drum machine. My buddy ordered one from Amazon a few years ago for his kid, and they sent two for some reason. So he gave me one for my kids, and it's a nice little, basic drum pad setup. And then I've got a couple keyboards. I play bass and acoustic guitar, electric guitar, whatever. Got my 12 string over here. I've been writing a few songs, trying to. Today I wrote a song when I got home from work for the first time in like months. I like to just write a song and play it real quick and then just never play it again. It's just my thing. But my intention in the long term is to make an album, and some of this shit I want to be like very funky and hip hop, like deep soul, funky shit. I mean, I have so many different types of music that I like that it's hard to just pick one. So I thought, no, I'm just going to do an album. When I finally do an album, it'll just be like 3 or 4 songs that I really like that I'll just put all my love into. But I don't know where I came up with that self-grandization. I'm going to make music. It's hard, though. It is really hard sometimes because... Oh, it's because you were talking about analog equipment. I have this old, it's digital, but it's one of the old ones where it's an 8-track, and it burns right onto the CD, so you finish and you can mix and process it there, and then it burns your CD right there, so you're like in the band room, you can just give it to people, which was really cool 20 years ago. Now they're cheap because you can buy, I think it's a Boss or a Tascam. No, I think it's a Boss, yeah, 8-track. I mean, they were like $1,000 when they came out. Now you can get them for like $200-300, if or less than that, probably even $150 because they don't have the USB plug. But the point was that they make this really crisp analog quality sound that is just I can't achieve on a computer. I don't know. There's something about processing it onto that first and then transferring it right onto an SD card that's just crisp and clear. But making music has become so fucking cumbersome. I want to say this to any musicians out there. Get rid of the plugins. Don't worry about the effects. Fuck all the editing programs and all that shit. Don't worry about waveform and click and paste and drag and drop. Pick up an instrument and play a song. And that sounds kind of harsh maybe, because I know some people don't play an instrument, and that's fine. If you want to put beats together, do it. Pick these stock beats and start with that. Make a few songs that you really like. Learn the patterns of music and how music operates before you worry about which effect you're using. And I know this because, like my middle son, he's 13, and he's been into FL Studio, making his own music, and he spends a lot of time, sometimes I go in there and he's taking some Moog synthesizer, waves, sine wave, and he's dragging it and clicking it and warping it and adding some flange to the end, which is cool, but it's just one sound. Then you've got to do something with that sound. So I was explaining to him that, and I think, you guys, this is a great metaphor for everything in life. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Quit fucking with shit. Do something with it. Build something. If a carpenter fiddles with every 2x4 to make sure it's splinter free, he's not going to be able to build a house. Just do it. And I gotta say, I get a little hasty sometimes and just make something without trying to perfect it. And I'm grateful that I can do that without having to feel so like anal that I have to make sure everything's done absolutely perfectly, because sometimes then it never gets done. You know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean. Spinning Wheels says, probably because you're eating that beef. Vegan Nation taking over, bro. I love you, man. Didn't you hear? You must have not been here earlier when I was talking about how awesome cow meat is. But at least we have lab grown meat now, right? That's gonna be some fucking real tasty shit there. No, I'll stick with my cows. Keith, crispy sound. It's the song that counts. Yes. Keith says, live acoustic on the fly. I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about just playing acoustic guitar, or if that's a band or something. Script making says mother's love and caring for child is in most cases automatic. Child is mother's hope for meaning without spiritual work being done, which is itself total absurd. Most families are a living hell. Ooh, that's a tricky one. So it sounds like what you're insinuating is that women otherwise really have no purpose, or that rather make kids their purpose. Let me reread this. Child is mother's hope for meaning without spiritual work being done, which is itself is absurd. I don't think that's true. I think a lot of women choose not to have kids or do spiritual work. Um, they maybe just work. But a lot of guys do the same thing, and I would say that the exact same thing that goes for women goes for men. Because it's not just women that want to procreate, it's men. But honestly, I know what you're getting at, and I think for women it's actually biological that at a certain point in women's life they want to have a child. At least not maybe not all women, but a lot of women it's a very instinctual thing, and it can drive them nuts. Maybe if they don't. I think for men it's not necessarily the biological need, because men can procreate anytime and aren't held to raise the kids. But there's a psychological belief that if you don't have kids, then you can't be, I don't know, a man, right? Or you haven't fulfilled your duty as a man. Now this has totally changed now, but in the past that's what it was. You grow up as a man, you have kids, and yeah, you have a family, you work your job, you retire, all that bullshit. But all the job crap aside, really the job was just a replacement for going out and hunting. In essence, all we want is just to be responsible and have meaning in our lives. And raising kids gives us meaning because it's kind of silly, because it's not like we're really leaving a legacy. It's this old joke. It's like building a monument, right? Oh, they'll remember me and then I'll be alive. For me, my reason that I'm glad I have kids, three awesome boys, because I saw a lot of dumbass kids around. And I thought, somebody's got to have kids to weigh out the dumb shits. That sounds horrible, but it's true. There's a lot of dumbass kids out there. And a lot of smart kids that are just treated horribly. And I thought if I could teach my kids to be respectful and treat others with respect, then maybe they in turn can teach a few other people. Because ultimately, I got to grab something real quick. Ultimately, my goal is just to pass on as many good vibes as I can to other people. Turn off this heater because it's kind of loud too. Well, if there's one thing I don't want to be, it's a professional YouTuber where I have to make sure that all my vlogs are up to, my hair's messed up. Gotta make sure everything's perfect and catered. And that's why I decided tonight's topic would be about how everything sucks. And it was so weird to get that comment right before I started this on a video that's called The Internet Sucks, or Why YouTube Sucks. And that was based on an older video I made called Why Instagram sucks, and it said like ego influencers and ego whores, and surprisingly, YouTube promoted it, but it was about just how much self-grandizement we have, about how the self-importance that we have. And every time I post a video, I think about that. Like, am I just being? Why do I want to post? Like, why would other humans want to hear what I have to say? And I grew to understand that some people do, and so at least when I do say things, I try to say them as respectfully as I can. Everybody's looking, right? At everyone. All of us are on display now. And when you're going to make a comment online, or you're going to make a video or a post, or even be sponsored by a product, god damn it, people need to learn how to like select a little more carefully who they're sponsored by. Just the way that everybody seems to have a paid self a promotion for some shitty product and doesn't even really think twice about it. It's just like the norm now. Oh, everybody's got to make a living, so here's some snake oil for you. You know what I mean? I'm gonna call out bullshit and dishonesty everywhere I see it in my life, and I hope everyone else does too. Don't let other people fucking fool you into kind of just hiding as a coward and just playing the game, because nobody's ever happy playing the game. They're never satisfied. And like somebody you were just saying about the spiritual thing, I think that that goes for men and women. That often we look for spirituality to kind of cover up what we haven't discovered elsewhere. But the same with religion or whatever it might be. I guess religion is spirituality technically, but the words have become mutually exclusive. Anyway, No Limit says, "What do you do when you're not get effective creative changing strain or more than one change? No wait time. I just take less. Less is more with kratom. Just if I get no effect, then often it means that I have a cold or something. If I'm not feeling well, kratom often doesn't do anything for me. So I've been taking the same strain for over a year now. I just don't care anymore. I'm not a kratom fan anymore. I mean, I use a small amount to help me work, to help me function, and maybe if I'm in pain, my back's really bad. Sometimes I'll take a little extra." I don't know what Hayoshigi is. Is that Fushigi? No, okay. Leonard says, "The greatest living thing is having my son was the jam sessions. It worked out really good." Nice, nice, nice. That's how my son is too. He plays in a band now, and they're really good. You guys should check them out. They're called Flying Caravan. There's another one in England called The Flying Caravan. It's not that, but they just put their stuff on Spotify, and yeah, they're really good. I went to see them on New Year's, and I'm really proud of my son to be able to play music. And his girlfriend, they stay over here sometimes because they live up a little further north, and when they're playing concerts on the weekends or doing jobs in town, they'll stay here. And a week or two ago, they came over and they had their equipment, so we grabbed guitars and a bass, and she sings and plays, but yeah, so she was singing and playing, and we were playing and rocking out. There's nothing better than playing music with your like own kids. And then my youngest, who are 10 and 13, they're learning how. So I put a little guitar hanger on my son's wall so he can always have a guitar there in case he wants to try it out. But he's a little reluctant. But look, if you've got kids, I don't know how many of you out there have kids or how old they are or how old you are, but teach them how to play instruments, man. I mean, get them into guitar, get them into any type of music, even if it's just producing or recording. But I would highly recommend a physical instrument. You can dink around on the computer all you want. It's just not the same. And that's not just a traditionalist or something from nostalgia. That's literally holding an instrument is very important. Playing piano would be the most recommended because of the way that it gets your fingers. But I guess maybe you could use a keyboard too if that helps. Not a computer keyboard. Maybe that'll work though. Ha, Jackass, good to see you. He says the worst is when creators I enjoy shill a product I have expertise in. Oh man, oof. Man, I want to touch on that so bad, and I could go on and on. I'm afraid I'll just ramble on forever. Okay, there's a lot of channels on YouTube that I used to highly respect. They were channels that had some really great content, awesome discussions, and then like seemingly overnight, their shit just went to garbage. They started selling shitty products, had too long of ads. On top of that, they'd use the same old thumbnails, maybe a guy with glowing red eyes, or somebody's evil this week, or something bad about this, and it became this complete complaint session, about everything wrong with the internet. And then, if you haven't noticed, I'm sure you have, if you watch any channels like that, you'll find that one week somebody makes something about the Matrix trilogy and how it relates to the world, and then three other guys do it, and then five other guys do it. And then one guy talks about a scary story that happened, and then five other guys talk about it. And one guy talks about Mr. Beast, and 10 other guys talk about it. Not just because something's popular, but necessarily, but one guy sees a video and decides he's going to make his own video on the exact same topic, even though it's been covered to death. And really, the video tells you nothing new. They just want to shill a product. I hate to say it, even like, I don't know, it's hard to know who's authentic and who's not. I mean, you take guys like Charlie, or Penguins, or Moist Critical, right? He's one of the most popular guys, 13 million viewers or something. He posts like all the time, like 3 videos a day, and usually, even though it's slightly edited, it's not anything that takes any time to make, and he gets millions of views on it. Every video he posts, he gets thousands of dollars from it, right? And so a person could say, well, he's just doing it for the money and he doesn't even care about what he says. But the truth is, if he has something on the top of his head and he wants to say it, it's kind of like a commentary channel where he's like, I heard about this and I'm going to share it now. It's hard to know who's authentic and who's not. But the thing is, he's never shilling products. He sells his own shit. But there's a whole like genre of YouTube creators that just sells you garbage, just sells you the same old shit. I remember the first time I saw the established titles commercial, and I thought, okay, they're going to sell you a plot of land. And I'm sure many of you already know this, but it turned out to be a scam. Oh, shocking. You can't buy a square foot of land in Scotland and become a lord. I mean, the fact that people even believed this was just so ridiculous, but there's so many other ones that are the exact same thing. Like, not all of them are. Look, I signed up for Nebula, right? Curiosity Stream a couple of years ago. I remember, I was like, oh, okay, fine, I'll pay the money and I'll sign up for it and check it out. And found out it wasn't anything I couldn't already find on YouTube for the most part. But beyond that, I understand what they were trying to do. But it was throttled. I couldn't get the videos to play right. I paid for a year and I used it for like an hour. And that's how people feel about the shit they buy online. They figure it's going to be a ripoff, that they're not going to want to use it, that it's not going to be worth their time. And they're usually right, which drowns out the good products. And yeah, anyway. Wow, with that light pushed forward, it looks a lot better in the picture. Not me, but there was like lines in it. No limits. You're welcome, my friend. I would say, yeah, I could talk about Kratom more, but there's only so much I could say. Oh, Jackass says the knives, the Japanese knives. Yes, those knives are total shit. And a lot of people, the Shinto, well, it wasn't Shinto. No, I have a Shinto rasp. That's different. It was some kind of fucking shitty blade. It was actually a really poorly mass-produced blade that was just made in China, and they shipped them over in quantity, and a whole bunch of people were selling them. Put it this way, if they have to make a commercial to sell you knives, don't buy the knife. I mean, I know a lot about knives. I like a good quality knife. I have a nice Frost blade. I've got a really nice Kershaw. Buck knives I grew up with. They stay sharp forever. My dad, I lost one in the woods that was like my dad's. It was so awesome. I've got some old timers from Schrade. There's some phenomenal knives out there you can get for a really reasonable price. And there's no reason to buy some shitty, crappy knives off of that when you sharpen them, they're just going to get pieces of fucking crappy metal in your food. It's not worth it. But there was an exception. A long time ago, there was a commercial, an infomercial for the Miracle Blade. And I have to tell you, It works really well and it was very sharp. And if you keep it taken care of, that can be a decent blade. There were some good products, but generally, if YouTubers are selling you stuff, I don't know. Let me know if you found any good quality merchandise that you've actually bought, not from merch from YouTubers, but some shit that they're shilling. You know, like I said, established titles is one thing, but now it's like they're selling you programs and trying to sell you courses, and it's like, let me put it this way: the reason I quit selling kratom was multifaceted, but part of it I still do a little bit, and I still want to sell it, but the quality I was getting was not what I was getting before. I'm extremely, extremely wary about selling a product that I can't stand behind 100%. But there was more to it. I didn't want to be a merchant, be a middleman. I wanted to get back to carpentry. So it's a complicated story. But in general, when I was buying and selling kratom, I would order, like a 25 kilo box to test it out. There's maybe at least 2 or 3 times. I probably still have about, I'll be honest, I have about 50 kilos in there of stuff that was below the grade of what I wanted to sell. And so it just sat and it's still there. Like, I'll take it myself because I don't really care that much. But I didn't want to short my customers. So I just ate the cost. Fuck, one time I got like 50 kilos confiscated by the DEA at the border because it was mislabeled, and I never got my money back, and I never got the kratom. It was fucked up. Um, all kinds of bad experiences with the shit, but I never passed that cost on. Like, I'm an honest businessman, and it really sucks when I see people who would just totally scam people and rip them off because people don't know any better, right? And I think, what am I doing shorting myself? Why am I? But it feels better inside to know that you're not screwing other people. That's what's important. To make sure that you're doing shit for the right reasons. But the point to that was that these people can make thousands of dollars off of a quick YouTube ad and never even think twice about the product or what it actually does. It's like it's like that bald guy trying to sell me a Dollar Shave Club. Um, I know, gotta shave your head, right? Yeah, fucking YouTubers, man. And it's not YouTubers. It's not. I hate using that term. It's not like content creators. I don't like that one either. It's like half these people aren't creating any content, and that's fine. Like, it's like, I guess everything is technically content if you're content with your content. My luscious locks. Thought about cutting my hair the other day. Someday, maybe. The communes. Script making. Yeah, there were a lot of communes, that's for sure. And there still are. It's just that people, they're called intentional communities now. And there's a lot of them around, believe me. People just don't want to brag about it. They want to be left alone. Jackass says, I like small creators. I watch channel until they get big and then unsubscribe. Well, it's funny you say that. Jackass says most of those communes were fake. No, they actually weren't. There's a lot of them, and there still are. Maybe the ones we saw, that they really hyped up, they weren't necessarily fake. They were just, they didn't work out as well. There were a lot of people out there who were horrible. I think it's not, the reason why communes don't work, and I want to make this pretty fucking clear, it's because it's very difficult to work with a group of people where nobody's in charge. Okay? Look, I was in a band with my brother, and I let my brother take charge. Why? Because he's a great guitarist, he's a great musician and songwriter. So when he said we're going to play this or do it in this order, we didn't question it. He was the band leader. Now, some bands don't have a band leader, but then nobody's writing the songs. Who does this? Who does this? There's a reason why you have a front man. The same thing goes for employment. You can have an employee-run company, but you still need a boss to make decisions and do some basic choices and decision making and talking with people that the average person can't do. It's the same reason we hire cops to do the patrolling and garbage men to pick up our garbage and road crews to do the roads. everybody specializes in certain things. But forgot where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I wanted to say something also about the creators thing when you said that you unsubscribed. That's funny because I've had people say that to me. They're like, "Oh, I'm unsubscribing. Your channel is got too big." And this to me, and this was back when I had like only 1,000 subscribers. So I guess it depends on what you mean by too big. But it really sucks because I was like, well, that would suck to lose my subscribers that I love just because my channel had too many subscribers. But I think the reason why is because they stop their authenticity at a certain point. I've been doing this for fucking 12 years, the same way, sitting in front of the camera in the same fucking room. So I can say that I'm still myself. I may have changed a lot of my ideas and thoughts about life, but yeah, Script says most. Yeah, they're not fake. You're right, Script. Yeah, they weren't fake. Um, most were scammers. You're talking about scammer. You're talking about a few communes that were had some scammers in it. Those are the ones that get into the media, but most of them you never heard about it. So because most people don't want to talk about where they live in their communes. They don't want a bunch of people coming out there. But at the same time, if you can get an artist collective together, it can work. But you do need somebody in charge. Humans have a natural tendency to look up to leadership, and I know people will disagree with that, but it's from what I've seen. If people don't have a leader, everything falls apart. Doesn't mean your leader has to be disrespectful. You should respect your leaders, but there should be somebody who's in the lead. And that's why communes only can go so far, become so large. You can have a small family collective, but even in a household, you have a head of household usually. I mean, even in same sex couples, there's a dominant person. Like, it's just the way humans are. There's a person who makes decisions. It doesn't mean the other person can't help make decisions, or sometimes they decide. It just means when the shit really gets rough, who's the guy you send into battle? Like, you have a commune and the somebody comes in, the cops come in, whatever it might be, and somebody needs to go talk to them. Who is that? Do you have a spokesman? And that's what a medicine man could be, I guess. Doesn't mean they have to be disrespected. They can be totally respected. This comes down to why I believe that humans need to, if humans are going to hang out in groups, they need to do it if they need to have leadership, it has to be leadership that can be held accountable for their mistakes and misgivings. In other words, having a localized community that is small enough to where a person can go and actually get accountability by those who make bad decisions that affect their lives. It seems like a lot to ask for, doesn't it? YouTube, okay, Bunny says, good to see you, Bunny. Says YouTube finance space is next level sellout. Oh my God, don't even get there. Oh God, you get me started on these. Those are the financial gurus out there who want to sell you a course in how to make money, even though they made all their money selling courses on how to make money and have never made any actual money doing anything in their lives. They just made all their money selling courses about making money. It's a crazy circle that people fall into, and it's part of this extremely toxic hustle culture. You got guys like Andrew fucking Tate. I mean, Andrew Tate is a total douchebag. I can't even believe people respect that guy. Like, it shows how far we've degraded. That you can have a guy talking about women the way he does, and people just stand up for him and be like, no, he's a hustler. He's a good guy. No, he's not. He's a shitbag. I don't care if he's putting on an act or not, because the reason why I talk about guys like that is not. I never make a video where I'm like, I'm going to talk about this guy just to get views. It's always me talking about some other dude because I'm so bothered by the fact that young men who are confused and looking for direction go out there and they find a guy like Tate or even a guy like Alex Jones for their media and believe that that's the truth because they're telling them that's the truth. They make you feel like you're part of a community, part of a team, but really they just want your money for their dick pills or whatever else they're selling. And it's all bullshit. It's like when you find out your true self, that's when you know. When you're a real man, you see through that bullshit. You know what I mean? Nothing to prove kind of thing. Because you don't need to. Capunes will become a thing. Capitalist breakaway communities. I don't know. Logic says the way I see it. I'm assuming leading people is a different job, but it doesn't yet need to be a power or hierarchy thing. It's just taking on different additional responsibilities. That's exactly right, and that's what I mean. And I think that's why leadership is kind of a misunderstood word. A leader is someone who leads. That's not the same as a dictator, and I think that we've kind of got them all confused because our leaders have acted more like dictators from all sides and all parties. But I want to, I guess, to play the devil's advocate here, even when we have leadership that's a little rough around the edges, I had to acknowledge the fact that some people only respond to tough talk. And tough love is the only way to get through to some people. So it becomes down to no matter how civilized your society is, there will be some angry people. There will still be people who say kill others and need to be punished. And it's like, what do you do about them? Well, somebody has to make a decision on, do you execute a person, right? So we have juries, and those are other humans who are put in charge of another person's life, or a judge, and the systems we have in place are actually pretty fucking good considering how far we've come and how horrible some of our history has been. But they could be so much better with just a few small tweaks. Like the ideas themselves are good. It's just that the corruption that infiltrates our whole system doesn't allow it to work. That's why it's not the issue of Congress or the Senate or the government that's the problem. It's the people in it. You know what I mean? And that's the same way with the corporations. It's the people running them. And, the idea of capitalism is fine because it's not going to change just because I don't like it. But I think that what we have right now is a social, call it what you want, I guess, but it's a form of capitalism, socialism slash capitalism, and we're already living in it. That's why I can drive down the road and not have my tire blow out on the potholes, even though there's a few that they really need to fix. And this squeaky couch needs to be replaced. Squeaky, and I need to put a screw in there or something. Carpenter's job is never done. Jackass says Andrew Tate is weak and that he has to tell people how successful he is. Oh yeah, exactly. That's I think, let me put it this way. It's, flexing as it's called. Um it's different than peacocking. For those unaware of the term peacocking, it's something that younger people do to flash their feathers, basically, to show you what they've got. It's the way that younger people will dress up in, brand name clothes and soup up their cars. They're peacocking because they're trying to find a mate, whether they know it or not, right? That's what it's really about. And, but it's quite different than a guy like Tate who is older and is bragging about his wealth. That's flexing. And when you flex wealth, to me, when a person, anybody who like holds up money and shows standing by a car or with their arm around half naked chicks and is doing it seriously and not ironically, because I mean, I've seen plenty of people joking around about that, but people who really take that as, I'm a cool guy, look at me, I got chicks and cash and rings and gold and chains. I realize that those are not, they're not confident men. They're not confident men that really understand themselves and feel good about themselves. Now, I know people will completely disagree with that. They will say a person flexes because they want to show you what they have because to prove that they're successful. I say success has nothing to do with wealth. Success has, and you know what's sad is that so many people flex with cars that they rent. They rent these fucking supercars or borrow them, and then they come out with like probably fake ass stacks of cash too. There have been so many YouTubes. I love the YouTube like the deep dives, and the icebergs with some of these people that come out on YouTube as if they're, totally rich and they fool a bunch of people, which are a lot of these financial gurus too. You find out they don't have a penny to their name. They borrowed like a few $1,000 and they faked being wealthy. Some of these people get in with the wealthy groups. If that's who you want to surround yourself with is your choice. But if you're going to surround yourself with wealthy people and pretend you're wealthy just to feel cool, It's sad. It's really sad because wealthy people are pretty fucking shallow. That money is their thing, and if that's their thing, and they want to flex and gather around other people who have money just because they have money, and who can have a bigger pool and a faster car. I don't get it. It's not my lifestyle, not my interest whatsoever. But yeah, Sandra says it shows there are many people who are oblivious to values, as you've mentioned before, and that's absolutely correct. And that leads me to a question: what are values? In other words, what should our values be? And I've pondered this shit for years, and it's not very simple. Jackass says you cannot get rich quick. You can get rich very, very slowly. You're actually wrong on that one, my friend. Yeah, a lot of people do get rich quick. But there's an old saying, a fool and his money soon part. That's because even if a person does get rich quick, buy into a bunch of Bitcoin and end up selling it quick, whatever it might be, buy some stupid NFT and sell it before it collapses. As I said a year ago when I made a video talking about NFTs and how fucking dumb they were, and I felt stupid because I was like, why am I even talking about NFTs? They're going to be dead in a year. And here we are. But I had so many people saying, no, they're the future. They're the future. It was like a bunch of digital bored apes are actually going to be the future. Okay, fads come and go, and a sucker is born every minute, and a fool and his money soon part. We all know this. But it's hard to watch because you want people really stand behind things they think are going to be successful, whether it be cryptocurrency, NFTs, or even Elon Musk, the king of false promises. I realize that there's nothing anyone can say that's going to change anyone's mind about their ideals and their heroes, and that's maybe a good thing, but maybe not. I don't know how to feel about these things. Like, my family always gives me shit. They're like, "Oh, you're an Elon Musk hater. Why are you?" It's like the only person I talk about when I don't mean like all the time. I mean when I do mention rich people, he's the one that always comes to mind, and I'm like, here's this guy totally out of touch with people, yet people love him for some reason, and I think people are finally seeing through it. But totally out of touch with the needs of civilization, while at the same time pretending to care about civilization. Like, we want to be able to help the earth and go green and make electric cars, but in reality, we know that we can't go all electric. It's impossible. Statistically, you can't have enough batteries. There's not enough juice in California. You'd have to increase the grid by like 6 times just to get enough electricity for these cars. And guess where a lot of electricity comes from? Boom, burning coal and oil. And it's not that the problems can't be resolved. It's that we think that there's quick fixes for everything, and there's no one hero that's going to come bail us out. And that's a long way of saying why I'm against authoritarianism and trusting one leader. Why I believe that having leadership is important, but we also need checks and balances, which is why the president can't just make unilateral decisions to do whatever he wants. They have to actually go through Congress and make sure things are approved, and we can veto back and forth. And government is tragically slow for the reason of keeping people from doing extreme things. It's to cool our jets. And so I have a respect for the US political system because I understand it's slow moving on purpose. And that took me a long time to get. People want change now. Like, we want change instantly. We want gun control overnight because something happened. But when you think it through and you're like, okay, is this really the reason why this is happening? Okay, let's look at the statistics. Let's talk about it for a minute. Nobody really wants to talk about it. They just want results. You can't blame us. I mean, we want things to be better for ourselves and for others. We want a better future for our kids. And the way a lot of parents are talking about the world right now, do you really think that your kids are looking forward to the future? They see that you're not happy at work, or you're not happy with the way the world is, and the fact that their parents are watching the news all the time or screaming about cultural issues. That shit rubs off on the kids. And like I said, one generation is all it takes to totally devastate what we have. to totally improve society or destroy it. Let's talk about inclusiveness for a minute, or the idea that we need reparations and everybody's a racist and a sexist, because that's a super hot button topic issue. Is culture to blame at all for the trans issues? Is culture to blame for the reverse discrimination and racism we have? The fact that they're saying if I'm black I can't be a racist, but if you're white you are a racist just because your ancestors did this. Like we said before, it's a circular argument that goes nowhere, and the fact that it's even controversial shows that we've really fallen quite far to not be able to talk about basic topics like color of skin. Or I think where it really sunk in was a couple of years ago when I heard people saying that men and women are no different. That actual physical men and women, biological men and women, really there's no real difference. Even in strength, it's just like, oh, well, there's strong women too, and there's feminine men. It's yes, but you're not saying that, XY chromosomes or, that's one thing, but looking at the physique and physical issue, the difference between men and women, and then seeing that, trans women, or rather trans men, or trans women, I guess, were going into female sports that were born as men, and that society was forced to just kind of close their mouth about this. Now, this was a big issue because a lot of people spend their whole lives, a lot of women spend their lives dedicated to their sport, whatever sport it might be, and then to have a dude come in there that just transitioned and actually win and beat your ass and get a gold medal and take away your gold, yeah, that's going to piss anybody off, whether it's a skateboarder, basketball player, it doesn't matter. Women have a smaller physique in general than men, and there are some who have worked very hard to get where they're going, and the fact that this something so obvious happened as a man identifying as a woman with his junk and everything going into a woman's sport just because he feels like a woman and taking the gold medal, that to me, it wasn't the fact that that happened, it didn't surprise me at all, but the fact that it continues to happen, and that any woman who says anything about it is chastised. See, because 10 years ago it was about women's rights. Then they put Bruce Jenner on the cover of Women. I think it was Women's Magazine or something. Or what? No. Yeah, Caitlyn. Is it Caitlyn Jenner? Yeah. Won Women of the Year. And this kind of stuff has really got me thinking and unsure how to even talk about it. The fact that we're normalizing things like reverse racism or discrimination, or the fact that you should feel guilty because you are a certain way, or the exact opposite, you should feel guilty because you don't support a certain person or feel a certain way. I refuse to be coerced. My language will never be coerced. I have the utmost respect for all cultures, all people. I don't care who you are. I don't care what race you are, what gender you are. I don't give a fuck what's under the hood. What matters is what's in here. What's in your brain, I should say, I don't care what's the paint color or the. See, I do care what's under the hood, right? What's the engine? What drives it? What's in your heart? Are you a good person to hang out with? If you're playing the victim all the time and complaining about how everybody's out to oppress you, maybe I'll get annoyed with you. And it's not because. It's hard because if somebody complains about feeling oppressed, even when they're not, and then you disagree with them, then it just makes them feel more oppressed. So often people want to play the victim, and then people just give them fake empathy and say, oh, I'm so sorry, it must be so hard. Not realizing that everyone's suffering this way. We all have problems. We all have genetic problems. We all have family problems. We all have social issues. We all have problems in school. We all have problems with our brains and figuring out who we are. And then it seems like a lot of folks just want to think that it's easy for some people. And it's easy for nobody. Nobody escapes. We're all born into this world with the same problems. It doesn't matter if you're rich. It really doesn't. Sure, you can be pampered your whole life, but that does not mean that you're going to be happy. You're going to convince yourself you're happy. And hey, Who am I to say? I'm one guy. I'm just going on what I've seen people, I heard people say, the discussions people have, and one of the most revealing things, which is what people really care about when they're on their deathbed. They're not laying there saying, I should have made more money. That's not something I've ever heard. They're not saying that I should have taken more advantage or worked longer hours. It's always the same thing. I should have loved family and friends and spent the time I have enjoying my days. Got out in nature more and done more things with people. We all have regrets. And that's not what I'm not trying to say that we should all change. You can't live every day as if it's your last, like people would like to think. But because the weeks go by and the days go by, and it's hard sometimes. It can be really hard, but we got to fight through. Yeah, Bunny, I agree. You're correct. Logic, care about money as a tool. It's a means to an end, not a means in itself. You're correct. I think the reason why people want a lot of money is because they think it's a means to an end, but they want to have that taken care of in the future. See, it's like an early retirement. There is something about having enough money to not worry about rent for the next few months, to be able to have a nest egg of even a few $100. But if you've got a few grand that you know that you can use in an emergency, it really takes a lot of pressure off. So to some people, even a little bit of money can go a really long way. Definitely. Adam says, you took the words right out of my mouth. Flexing is an obvious lack of self confidence. Yep, that's exactly right. People, yep. Sandra says, the Enron issue. Yeah, that was funny. I remember that. It's funny, I just saw a joke about the Enron thing earlier. Yeah, or the banking collapse in 2008 where we just bailed them out, right? Values are who you are when no one's around, says Jackass. Yeah, it's part of it. I remember saying, if you want to know who you really are, how would you fare if your house burned down and you were thrown out on the street naked? Like, could you confidently walk up and be like, I need help? Or, like, what kind of a person are you when you have nothing and you're stripped down? I guess it'd be in the pitch black would be better. Like, yeah, I'd have to go through that discussion again. I'm just reading the comments real quick. Steve says, we got thrown into a bizarro world. Yep, yep, yep. Logic says, newsflash, everyone's out to get everyone in a capitalist society. Find some friends and team up with some cool people to survive. It works for me anyway. I absolutely agree. Definitely have some friends, but um, I think we survive all right as long as we're willing to realize that capital, like you said, capital is not a means to an end. They're just means to survive, right? But it depends on what you want and how you want to survive. But it's more than that because work is actually a very important part of people's lives too. They want to do something meaningful, most people. But I don't think everyone's out to get everyone at all. I think that most people mean well. Just that the really driven ones, the ones you hear about, are right, the extreme ones. Hello, Jay says we have our problems, but other people have more problems with your existence. What? We all have problems, but other people have more problems with your existence. My existence? Fuck. You guys have problems with my existence? Hello, Robin. Good to see you. I'm going to stand up for a minute again, and I always end up making podcasts too long because I'm very long-winded and I tend to talk forever, and I would say I'm sorry about that, but I'm sure you don't care. You're listening, so you can always turn it off if you don't like what I have to say, right? Which I'm sure many of you already have. I'll tell you the truth of why I'm standing up. Besides having a brouhaha, then I can vape without it being on camera. And since I don't advertise and I don't make profits off of this shit, um, I mean, I get donations sometimes through the live chats, but I don't like make money or revenue off of these. So I don't care if it gets demonetized. But I don't like doing things on camera that I feel like kids might see. Let me tell you a little story about how I've changed in the past 10 years since I started YouTube in 2011. I really started uploading around 2012, right before the end of the Mayan calendar, and we all exploded. Um, so it's been about 11 years now since I really started uploading, and I've talked about every topic under the sun. But something I used to do, and I watched some of my old videos a while back, and I was smoking on camera. Fucking smoking cigarettes. And I had my fucked up teeth, and some of you don't know I have crowns now, all my teeth. And I really should have gone to Mexico to pay for it because I spent way too much, and it was all my savings. In fact, when I started my kratom business, I was saving all my cash, and that's what I spent, like everything, to get some of my teeth, half my teeth fixed. And anyway, yeah, I got my teeth fixed. I feel good about it. But before this, I had like a fucked up thing right between my front teeth. It was like turning black. Then I was missing a tooth, my canine, one of my canines. And on top of that, I was always smoking. And then I had short hair and no beard. So looking back on those videos, I just feel so awkward. I'm like, I looked horrible. But worst of all, I was smoking on camera. Not only that, it was on my weed channel where I was constantly talking about cannabis, and I had a grow room, and I don't even feel good about that anymore. I feel like it's tacky, you know. It's hard to explain. I feel like it's tacky to show consumption of substances on camera, and maybe that's part of getting older. But I think it's more of just not wanting to influence young people. Now, of course, I'm sitting here describing it to you, so it's not like you don't know I'm vaping. But I want to tell you, I smoked for 25 years. And when I finally started vaping and quit smoking, it was the best decision I made. I mean, I want to make it clear I don't recommend vaping for anybody. I don't recommend any kids to ever vape. Don't do it. It's really dumb. When I found out that kids were vaping in school, but they didn't never even smoked, and that they just thought it was cool and they didn't even know there was nicotine in Juuls, I was like, oh my god, are you kidding me? Yeah, kids are still dumb. I was dumb too. But it's a completely different experience to vape if you were an ex-smoker. If you vape and you've never smoked, it's going to be horrible for your body. But if you vape and you used to smoke, it's at least going to be an improvement in my experience. It really cleared my lungs out a lot, and I feel a lot better about it. Flip through. What was that? Oh, money was a form of communication. Jim Morrison once said he liked money. It is a form of communication. Yeah, you just got to see it differently, I guess. That's right. Jackass, $5. Hey, thanks, my friend. I appreciate the donation. Peace to you. Says you ever watched Leonard Nimoy's In Search of. Great show. I don't know if I have or not. If it's an older one, I may have, but if it's new, I haven't seen it. Humble says, yeah, it is. You're right. I find even bragging about showing off weed is corny now that I'm older. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. You become a lot more humble, and you just. For me, it was never about showing off. It was just about sharing. But I don't want kids influenced by that shit. Steve said he made it a month without vaping, got off cigs, but then I got more hooked on those. Oh, you mean you vape when you're laying in bed and you're holding it while you're sleeping like I do? Okay, that's probably something I shouldn't admit, but hey, I'll tell you something even worse. For anybody who's made it this long in my life, you get a secret. It's not really a secret, but it's something most people would never admit. Okay, I stuck my thumb when I was younger. And I realize as an adult now that it's a very nervous habit. It's an insecurity. But I didn't just suck my thumb until I was 5 or 6, or I guess that even seems old to some people. I sucked my thumb till I was almost 12 years old. And nobody ever said it was weird. It was considered totally normal to me. But eventually one day I just quit. And God, it was only a couple of years I started smoking after that. And then after I started vaping, I started realizing that this is my mechanical thumb. And it's the weirdest thing because I'm not an insecure person, but I have insecurities subconsciously, right? Like we all do. And when I bring them to my forefront of my consciousness, it's I can analyze them only as much as I'm able to. It's kind of like trying to see your whole body from in a mirror, right? No matter how much you look at your soul and your psyche and your intentions, you're really only getting a small picture. You can only see one side at a time, and that makes it hard to assess ourselves. So I know my addiction to vaping is bad, but I think, what would I do if I wasn't vaping? A lot of people start smoking more weed. I remember one time saying I was going to stop smoking weed by smoking joints instead. Or stop smoking cigarettes by smoking joints instead. And I thought, no, I can't do this at work. I'm a carpenter. Like today, I was even spacey when I was at work and I left early because I didn't want to hurt myself. I mean, I'm using chop saws and table saw and routers and shit all day long. And if I'm even slightly out of my element, I can't do my job. And that's another aspect of the consumption thing. When I was younger, I used to smoke weed all the time. And as I got older, I've been smoking since I was about 15. So I'm 25, 40, yeah, 32 years, 30, almost 33 years I've been smoking pot. Pretty much every day, except for a 2 year period where I was on probation. And at that point, my oldest son was 15. He's 27 now. This was about 12 years ago. And I quit smoking pot for about a year and a half because I was on probation and had to take drug tests. And I said, I'm not going to get a dirty UA and go to prison, you know, uh, when I have a kid to take care of and a family and a wife, like I'm not, so I'm just gonna quit smoking, and I did for 2 full years almost. And the minute I was off probation, went right back to smoking. And I was like, I missed it. I love cannabis. Same thing happened. I was on probation before. When I was growing weed, I got busted in '98, and I 97, I think, and I was on probation for a while, and I just kept getting dirty UAs, and I didn't want to do that again. But at that point, I had to go to this treatment program that was just for God. Everybody was in there for like junk, heroin and coke, meth. I was the only dude in there for weed, and it was just stupid. Everybody was like always joking, like, "Oh, you're in here for pot, huh?" Because my PO, my probation officer, didn't know what else to do. But the point was, I finally quit smoking for like 5 months to do that program, and I remember the day I got off probation, maybe it was the day I was done with the program. I don't even think I was off probation yet. I went home and I rolled up like a 4 joint spliff and just smoked the whole thing. It was like, oh yeah. Well, it wasn't a spliff. A spliff has tobacco in it. It was all weed. I've got a picture of myself. I took it as a panoramic picture with a instant camera, and I'm sitting there like holding it with these red eyes like you've never seen before. And this was way back in like 2000 and 2001 or so. And yeah, I mean, I used to think of cannabis as kind of a styly thing. I wore pot shirts, stuff like that. Now I kind of take it as a given take it for granted. I guess people always used to come up to me and think I was the guy that had weed. So I'm like, well, people already know I smoke. I don't have to wear a big pot pin to prove that I smoke pot. And even if I did, it's so tacky now. It was actually a little bit edgy in the 90s to be a stoner. Growing up in the grunge era and shit, being a teenager, you smoking weed with flannel shirts down on the train tracks, you gotta have a flannel shirt, but you have to have this sleeve. You have to have the flannel shirt is over a t-shirt, but that t-shirt is over a long sleeved thermal shirt, and then you have a pair of thermal bottoms with shorts over that. The hips, usual grunge look. And God, we smoked a lot of weed back then, and it was just the thing to do, I guess. And then I remember thinking to myself, I'll always be a pot smoker because I love it. And then one day I just started smoking less and less, and now I still smoke, but like if I'm gonna smoke during the day, I'll take like 1 or 2 hits, and then I just go back to what I'm doing. And it's not till the evening when I start taking maybe 3 or 4 bong hits. but I only smoke maybe less than a gram a day, which to some people like, holy shit, a gram a day. If you're not a smoker, then that's a lot, but it's not to me as a smoker. I mean, we should smoke a lot more than that. Less is more, and in other words, I guess what I'm getting at is it's better to brag about being clean and sober and not smoking and not being addicted than it is to brag about how good your dope is, or it's like it's become very passe, especially now with cannabis being so, legal. It's just not as cool anymore. And I think this is a good thing because a lot of kids don't like doing shit, unless it's edgy. I'm not going to say all kids start smoking pot because it's illegal, but it was definitely something that drew us in. Ooh, it's risque. But nowadays, it's just kind of like another commodity on the corner store. Speaking of which, I could really use a banger. I think I'm going to take one in just a moment before I continue on this podcast because it's getting a little long on this discussion, but I should continue on because I've gotten this far talking to you all for 2 hours, and hey, there's 30 people in here now. What can I say? Oh, it looks like somebody else donated $5. That's fucking awesome. Thank you. Jay says, how old are you? I am 47 years old. Carpo, you'd enjoy that show, mid-70s. I don't know what that is. When I found some... Steve says, when I found myself waking up with a vape in my hand, I knew I had a problem, LOL. Well, it's even worse when you wake up and your vape's not in your hand and you got to search around through your covers to find it. It's okay. It's okay. We've all got to have our thumbs. It's an oral fixation. Exactly, like Humble said. And I don't know for sure if that's a bad thing. I know that it's very common for certain animals and certain types of human. Let me put it this way. Robin says, I stopped smoking for 9 years. Vape is in hand even when sleeping. LOL. Thank you for the $5, Robin. I really appreciate that. Yes, I stopped smoking. I'm glad that you were able to quit smoking because I definitely agree vaping's better. But like I was going to say, the oral fixation thing, I found that there's certain things about myself, certain behaviors that I have been trying to correct over the years. One is being impatient when I'm driving, let's say, wanting to get where I'm going, kind of just being always like a bull in a china shop sometimes, like go, 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 talk too fast, do things too fast. And then I'd see these guys that were the cool, calm, collected type. And I thought, I want to be like that guy, stoic. And then I realized that's not what stoicism is. And since then, I've kind of been, I guess, rearranging my thoughts on what words actually mean and ideas actually are. But that often the cool, calm, collected, quiet type are often ones that are afraid to speak, or people that don't have anything to say. You find out often there's nothing to say. It doesn't mean all people are that way, but I believe in being an active, seeking thinker that's always on the go mentally. There are some side effects that come with that. And one of those is having some sort of addiction or oral fixation. You'll find that a lot of philosophers and, musicians that are really good musicians, they're always consuming something. They're always smoking. Philosophers would always have their pipe, or scientists back in the day. It's something to help you process your thoughts. Hard to explain, I guess. I guess it's kind of a bad thing, but I don't know what I'd do without it. Having some sort of a distraction, I guess. Ha! Jackass. Yeah, I used to chew Copenhagen as well, and Skull. And he switched to nicotine gum. I have a friend that was addicted to nicotine gum for years. And actually, that stuff's great. Some people say it doesn't work. If you use nicotine gum correctly, and you actually chew, park, only a nicotine gum user would know what I mean. That's what they say. They say chew it like several times, then park it in your gum, between your gum and your teeth. It's kind of like a chew, and it allows it to absorb over a period of time, and then they have the greatest buzz next to chew. I haven't had chew in years. I very much loved it, and I loved the buzz. It was great at work, and I just didn't want to fuck my teeth up any worse. And now I want to go get a fucking can of Coke. Thanks. Sandra says it's a habit. It may not be insecure. No, that's truth. It is a habit, and some habits are based on insecurity, but not necessarily all of them are. I guess now it's not insecurity. Now it's a habit, but it may have started with insecurity when I was younger. Is what I meant. Chris says social engineering. That's what's going on with certain things. You are correct. The more you know, says Dirty the Grower. Nice. Humble says smoking weed was more fun than it was illegal. Yep. Dirty says the day after I showed you Boxable, Elon Musk and Monroe, the car guy showed it. Ironic. Boxable. I don't remember that. But I grow more than most in Oregon. Smoke 24/7. Oh, you're in Oregon? Well, if you're in the Portland area, dude. Oh, you're in South Oregon. Oh, okay. Yeah, Dirty, if I ever run into you, I had a good friend, local friend that I used to buy like half pounds from and shit. I like to buy in quantity. Um, I like a really nice sticky indica. So I'd love to meet up with you if you do any side sales and pick up a QP or a half pound sometime. I don't like buying from the shops. I like buying from the growers because then I'm supporting people directly without all the bullshit Govy getting in the way. Hit me up if so. Yeah. Humble says you're almost 30, started in 14. Yeah, dude, cannabis can be a good one. All that herb made you look 37. Hell yeah, dude. Hey, somebody says, why do you look so young? You don't look like you're almost 50. I'm like, dude, it's called good living. You gotta see me when I'm clean shaven. I mean, I got a beard and long hair right now, but if I cleaned it up, man, I'd look like I'm 23. Yeah, right. Not wrinkled like a 47-year-old. You keep out of the sun? Of course I keep out of the sun, dude. Now, 47-year-olds are only, here's the thing, wrinkles only come to people for two reasons, either genetics or stress. Or yeah, sun, I guess, weathering. But yes, I do stay out of the sun. I don't believe in tanning. I think it's completely stupid and it fucks your skin up. And I go out to get enough vitamin D when I can. But I'm Scottish genetics, man. I'm from the Orr clan, Scotland. We didn't get any sun over there, so I burn pretty easy. But I think generally it's just genetics because, you know, we got lucky. We don't look old. But I think good living's a big part of it. I really do. Hmm. I'm going to see where we got Gandalf in his pipe. Robin says, did you get a haircut? Oh, well, no. I cut my own hair about 2, 3 weeks ago. So I figured it out. I haven't got a haircut in 20 years. So what I do is I take all my hair after the shower and I pull it down like this into two separate sides. Whoosh, make sure it's even, and I go snip, snip, and that's my haircut. I cut about 2, 3 inches off of it just to make sure it was even again. But I've thought about cutting it completely off at times. It's hard to say whether it would be worth doing or not. But, you know, when I started this channel, I didn't have to wear glasses to read shit. Now I do, so. I like logic. Like tea, coffee, smoking, or alcohol is something of an accessory. Yeah, I would say it's an accessory, not for stylish reasons, but just because it accessorizes my brain. But I've learned to pace myself. Let me just tell you that. It's not just with cannabis, it's with beer and whatnot. Like, for a while there, I could buy a bottle of vodka and it'd last me only a couple days, 2 or 3 days. But I'm talking about a half-gallon vodka. And it wasn't that I was ever totally drunk. I would just drink it throughout the day. And it got bad for a while. I've been wanting to talk about this in a video for a long time. And I have never really, maybe it comes down to having the courage, but also not wanting to put it out there to the universe and the world and the algorithm that, yeah, I drank too much. Because it's not something you really want to brag about. But I didn't, when I started this channel, I didn't drink at all. Maybe every 6 months. Just a stoner. And I told myself I don't want to end up like people who become alcoholics. And started drinking Jägermeister again. Kind of enjoyed it a little bit, then moved on to something else. Then next thing I know, I got to the point a few years later, during COVID, is when it really hit. We went to stock up before all the shit went down. Went to Costco, bought a few of those big, you know, what are they, 2,000 milliliter bottles of freaking their Kirkland brand vodka. And I said, we'll just buy these to stock up, you know, for storage in case the shit hits the fan. Because I like I'm a prepper kind of, and I didn't have any booze. But that booze quickly became like kind of a go to during COVID. We're all stuck at home. Nobody can go anywhere. We went on a couple trips, but pretty much there's nothing to do. And yeah, I started drinking more and more. And next thing you know, by the end of last year, I was like, this has to stop. Like, I'm not gaining anything from this. I feel stupid. I'm going to fuck my body up. So I said, New Year's liquor's over. I think I bought like a gallon of vodka like the week before New Year's, but, you know, drank that whole thing during the week and boom, I haven't bought any liquor since. You tell yourself you're going to do something and you make a pact for it. And yeah, that's my New Year's resolution. No more booze. And I've lived by it. And beer is a little trickier. I drink strong beer, but it takes a few. So you notice as it comes on, and I'll drink maybe one an hour. So, like I said, I started my video 2.5 hours ago, and that was the first beer I've really finished. So, I guess second. No, 1.5. But I like to pace myself, and sometimes I get a little too rowdy. And when I started making videos where I was drunk in the video, I started feeling really dumb. And I would be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And some of my live casts were a little out of hand. But it's okay. We learn. You know, we learn. How long have you been growing your hair? Says Humble. I don't know, man. You'd have to look back to my old videos. I thought about this the other day. I'm gonna say, well, I've cut it twice. I mean, it probably would have been down, you know, a few more inches, but I take a big chonker off when I cut it because I believe that it grows faster that way. But I think I started about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. Didn't take too long. I had really long hair when I was a teenager, and then cut it off when I was like 19 and decided to grow it back. Jay says, I hate alcohol. So did I. Got to try Kratom. Yeah, Kratom actually, that's the thing. If I take a dose of Kratom, it'll help me not want booze, and that was what people would say. But at the same time, alcohol has its own something that I can't get from Kratom. And it doesn't agree with everyone. Let me just put it this way. For a guy who didn't drink a lot growing up, I have an extremely high tolerance. My metabolism is through the fucking roof. I don't get fat. I mean, I'm 6'2" and I weigh like 160 pounds. Okay, 165, I guess, something like that. But I mean, I'm within my weight range, and you know, I feel in shape, and I feel strong, and everything. I just don't have a lot of extra weight. As an American, you would think I would, but I'm not a big eater, you know. And when I started drinking, I found that it helped me with my appetite to eat more, and I wanted to eat more because I felt like I was too skinny. Because people were telling me I'm too skinny, and I started thinking back, like, why do I let other people tell me I'm too skinny or too this or too that? Like, who determines what's normal, right? For a guy that's almost 6'3". And but anyway, I did use it medicinally, and I thought it was so funny to say I use medicinal alcohol to get me hungry, and it did work for a while, but eventually kind of has diminishing returns. But kratom isn't a world all its own. Kratom is something different. I've quit smoking weed for a year or so. I've quit taking kratom for a couple days, or I quit taking or drinking alcohol for a day or two. But I have never quit taking kratom in the last like 10 years. It's pretty crazy. I've had a long relationship with kratom, and I've definitely moderated down to like, you know, like 4 grams at a time instead of like 6 or 7 or something. And I've learned how to moderate my shit. So stop drinking 90% less in 2022. Yeah. Humble says they fought off alcohol abuse. Oh, yeah, it's his lamb. Yeah, anytime you're mixing any kind of benzos or anything like that, it can be really, really, really bad. And I would say the benzos can make you even worse. I took Valium for diazepam. I loved. I ordered a bunch of phenazepam from overseas, somewhere in Russia or something, years ago. Bought a gram of it for like $100 or something. This shit was active, orally active, in like a 2 milligram dose, which is like a tiny. It's a few grains, you know. So you had to like dose it with a toothpick, where I'd actually moisten the end of a toothpick, touch the very end of the toothpick in, and then put a couple grains under my tongue. And I guess I started hearing stories about people who woke up blacked out in prison or worse in the fucking morgue. um, and totally forgot what happened. Didn't remember the last week. So I remember taking that shit and flushing it all down the toilet. It was the best decision I ever made. Sometimes you just got to get rid of bad drugs, and that was one that was worth getting rid of. Organically grown lab rosin hash in a pen. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of hash, actually. I like smoking flower. I'm a big flower smoker. I have pens that I just don't smoke much because I like the effects of herb, and I know people will say it's the same. I do like rosin hash, and I actually my favorite is keef, just good pressed keef, because you're getting some of the flower material and other cannabinoids in there. But there's something missing that you can only get from flower. I don't know if it's probably not just cannabinoids, but something else within it that is maybe water based that's lost during the solvent extraction. I'm just not sure. But even a full spectrum extract doesn't seem to have the same effects as flower to me. I love my cannabis, but it's got to be flower. But hash pens are wonderful when I travel. I don't know what it is. Steve says, just quit kratom. Just wasn't getting much from it and felt like I needed a break. Well, you're smart to do that. I actually wanted to do the same for myself, and that's another thing that sucks. When talking about how everything sucks today, I would say one of the things that sucks the most is the fact that we all feel like we need distractions. And distractions and addictions, frustrations, are often from our lack of connection with others. And there's nothing worse right now as far as the worst epidemic that's going on right now isn't drugs. It's not a virus. It's fucking loneliness. People can't find anybody to love. They can't find anybody to relate to and talk with. And I guess that's why, it's nice to sit and talk with you all, even though it's just me talking to the camera and just reading your comments and seeing that people are there. It's like, it's a nice little group. It would be nice if we could all just sit in a warehouse and bullshit, but sometimes maybe it's better this way. I don't know. I have a live cast, but I never go to any live casts. I just feel like they're too busy and there's too much going on, and that's why I get just the right amount of comments to respond to. I appreciate you all. I might grab something real quick. My bong. My glass. I love my glass. I'm a bong smoker. I don't really care for joints or pipes. I love that sound. This cannabis, I don't know what kind it is. My wife picked it up, but it reminds me of this strain called White Shark. I'm going to tell you a short little cannabis story if you want. This guy that lived across the street when I moved here, his name was Kevin. He was a long-haired dude, hippie guy. I would say he dressed like a hippie, but him and his wife fought constantly and were screaming at each other, so he's a very violent hippie. He worked for his father-in-law, who was a carpenter here in town, and I said, well, I'm a carpenter, so he got me a job. We went out and did these little side jobs, or, well, full additions and stuff, and I remember one time we uh, we did a little side. We were working for him, but he had another friend who wanted some work done, and so we started this side job, and it was to go build this. It was kind of like a stick framed kind of arbor cover going over his whole patio area. So it required putting up a couple of big, like, you know, must have been 6x6 posts and some like 6x10 beams, and then a bunch of joists going over that. It was a long day of work, probably 8 hours, and heavy stuff up on ladders. Got it all done, and the deal was that the guy was going to pay us. Oops, my camera cut off. Anyway, we worked for the guy, and the deal was we worked 8 hours, and he was going to pay us in weed and um, some clones of a very, very desirable strain of cannabis, which was called White Shark. This was like 12 years ago. So we did the work, and at the end of the day, the guy gave us each a clone. That was it. Like we worked 8 full hours, and the guy gave us each one clone of White Shark that wasn't even rooted, and we're only like this tall. I mean, I was pissed. I was like, I worked all day for this shit. So I took that clone home. I nurtured that clone. I took such good care of it. I grew it up into a beautiful white shark plant. And the reason the guy only gave us one is because he was hoping they wouldn't survive, because he was the only guy in town that had that strain, and it was the best weed I've ever had. I grew it, and once it was big enough, I cloned the shit out of it. Ended up growing a sea of green of it, which is like a whole, you know, basically a bunch of plants of the same height, so they all fit under the light. And I grew it for like 2 years. And to this day, it's like the best weed I ever had. It was so sticky and it smelled so fucking good. It was like licorice and fruit, and oh my god, it was the best weed I ever grew. Was that and Durban Poison. They're both phenomenal strains. I'm surprised. I'm sitting here talking about weed off camera, and now there's even more people. I would think that half the people would leave because I'm talking about pot. Because I never know how many of my subscribers, you know, it's a weird thing. I used to have a channel where that's all I talked about was weed. And like I said earlier, for anybody who's just joining, it was so tacky after a period of time. And now something's really weird that's totally changed. I get messages from older videos of YouTube telling me that my stuff's been like age restricted or censored. Of videos I made like 10 years ago. Because now the AI, or the algorithms rather, I guess it is AI, has become so good that it can go back and scan old videos quickly and find anything in it that resembles, say, weed. They can pick out a video where you're holding up a bong and know it's a bong, or a beer, or a vape, or whatever it might be. And people don't even have to look at these things. It's just automatically censored. And so I guess that's why I'm a little more cautious about smoking off camera these days. Uh, yeah. Hey, Leon. Leon Loic says, hugs from Brussels. Thanks, my friend. It's good to see somebody across the pond over there. Carpo 2024. Oh, I pray you're not talking about the presidency. Because even as a joke, oh man. You know, it's funny. Whenever somebody says something like that, I always say I would not run. Yeah. It's funny. I was talking with my brother the other day, and he said he wants to be a politician. I was like, why the fuck would you want to be a politician? Especially in today's world. Because it's like, basically, in order to become swine, you have to roll in the mud with other swine. Like, you can't become a good politician and get around the way that things are corrupt. But that's something. The reason I brought that up, he mentioned fight fire with fire, you know, take care of business. And I thought partially the problem we have right now is fighting fire with fire. And it got me thinking about politics in general and just how cutthroat it is. You know what I mean? Uh, and just the things that go on behind the scenes that are just better unspoken, I guess, you know? But anyway, to the point of Carpo 2024, I would not want to be president. Like, if the American population came up to me and insisted that I be president, If somebody made a fundraiser where I'd raise $10 billion to run for fucking president, and all the everything was paid for and done, and I didn't have to do anything but just go into office, I still would never want that job. I really wouldn't. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I have a life to live. Once you've done something like that, that's what you identify as. That's become you. You're a president, then you're a past president, right? Maybe you'll do some art like George Bush or write a couple books. But who wants to spend that much of their life having people bitch at you all the time? And even if you have an idea, to implement that, you have to go through so many different, I don't know. It's just, being a politician would suck. It really would. To me, anyway. But it's for some people. And I give you credit and commend you if you can do it and do it right and actually change things. Oh. Excuse me. Yes, Kratom is friend. Jackass says, what does Kratom do? Kratom is, and when people ask what Kratom is, everybody beats around the bush. They're like, oh, well, it's kind of this and that. But they don't want to say that it's a, oh, my brother's texting me, or my friend's texting me. I gotta turn this down. So anyway, there we go. Kratom is like an opiate. It basically helps with pain. It can help with, but it can also help with anxiety, depression, things like that in certain doses. So like a 2 gram dose can be really good for like anxiety or motivation. Like a 4 or 5 gram dose can be good for pain, depending on the potency and quality. But people kind of beat around the bush on it. It's like an opiate, but it's not as addictive because it has a threshold that can't be crossed. In other words, you can continue to take morphine until you overdose. If you continue to take kratom, there's a point of diminishing returns where the effectiveness falls off and the efficacy turns into horrible feelings of nausea, and then you puke, and then that's done with. So the only exception is taking extracts. Now, when I first started selling kratom, I was buying from Herb Research, a friend Ethan, and he had the best shit. Back then it was tested like up to 2%. It was very strong. 2.1, 2.2%. Phenomenal kratom, but it had a lot of other secondary constituents in it as well. Like there's mitragynine, there's 7-hydroxy mitragynine. Um, so there's different compounds and lesser amounts of 7-hydroxy mitragynine. But those ratios are kind of like cannabinoids within cannabis. But there was something else in kratom too that I can't define beyond that made some heavier or lighter. But basically, with good kratom, you should be able to take a light dose and feel motivated, and a heavier dose and feel sedated. But it kind of become homogenized, and farmers started growing small plants when it became popular around 2009, 10, 11. And then the farm started selling young leaves, so trees that are only a few feet tall. So they're putting out leaves, but they're not the quality potency of the old growth in the forest. And the old growth became over harvested. Indonesia started having a kratom problem, trying to shut down illegal harvesting. It was illegal in Thailand. It was a big old fucking mess. Um, but that's what kratom is. It's a leaf from a tree in Southeast Asia that people really like. Put it that way. Humble. The last 4 or 5 years, he says, I've been quite lonely myself. I stay working and handling my business, but yes, agreed. Even during dating game today. Oh yeah, I can't even imagine what dating's like today. I'm a lucky man. I'm an extremely lucky man, but at the same time, I've earned my luck in a certain ways, and I'll explain what I mean. My wife and I have been together this year. Yeah, this year. I had to think. When you've been together a long time, it's hard. Sometimes you have to double guess yourself. So this Christmas coming up will be my wife and I's 25th anniversary of our very first date. We knew each other by she worked at the restaurant next to my gas station, Texaco there, where I pumped gas. Because in Oregon, you still have to pump your own, can't pump your own gas. So, yeah, I was a gas attendant, and I'd go into this place called Banning's. It was a restaurant. They had great breakfast omelets and shit. Everybody loved it. It was always open, I think. So I go in there and get breakfast in the morning, and she started writing little notes on the inside of my styrofoam breakfast, like "stay dry," with the smiley face, and "have a nice day" and stuff. Me being always thinking about science and physics and philosophy, am pretty dumb when it comes to taking hints. Let's just say that I'm not known for being the most romantic guy. So I didn't pick up on the hints, and for a few months she kept trying to do that. Finally, she ended up asking me out because I didn't pick up on the hints, and we went on a date, and it's crazy when I thought about it. I was like, that was 1998, and we've been together ever since. We got engaged a few years later. Didn't get married till 2012, but still, that's our 10th anniversary this year. And wait, no, third, yeah, 13, 11th anniversary. Oh my God, shit gets really confusing really fast. When you start forgetting your kids' ages and stuff, then you're like, oh shit. But yeah, the point. Sorry, I'm kind of reminiscing here and trying to remember the point why I brought that up. I guess it was because you said something about. Well, I'll just look at the comment. What was it? The dating game. Yes, thank you. 25 years ago, there was no dating game online. It didn't exist. It wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a night. I mean, it was an idea, but it wasn't that. There was no dating site online. You still had to go out and actually meet people. And I feel like today people expect you to use the internet. And when you're using I don't know if this is for sure how it works now, but I'm assuming most people start out there and it's harder to meet people out and about. There's a certain creepiness that women feel about men asking them out now. It's like this fear of guys of asking women out because a lot of women are, let's just say, a little more reluctant to trust dudes, I feel like, than they might have been in the past, but I could be wrong. And meeting people online, it gives you an idea of people's values and their interests. So it tries to match people that have similar interests and values, which is good. But I'm hoping that it's done properly because certain boxes don't need to be checked the similar. Like, you don't have to love the same bands. You don't have to like the same places. In fact, if you like different places, then you might introduce each other to something you've never seen. It's not that opposites attract 100%. It's just that most of the time, like my wife and I, we were both butt rockers. You might be saying, what is butt rocking? Butt rock is any 80s metal, like Rat, Twisted Sister, stuff like that. But we were also metalheads. We were into Slayer and Metallica and all that. And then we were also Deadheads later on. So we all fell into the same music. And when we met, we discovered Modest Mouse, and we went to see them, and we found liked Fish, and it, we just liked the same shit, and that was awesome. But there's certain things I like she doesn't like, and that's fine. And that's the thing. You don't have to like the same shit. And I feel like there's no computer that can properly match you when you see a certain something in somebody's eyes, a certain vibe and connection. When you really connect with somebody, fucking honor that connection. Doesn't I'm not even talking about just a relationship, but friend, family, anything. Take it when you can get it. So yeah, that was my long response to the comment about a dating game, which I don't even know what it might be. Adam says, "Sire, I know where you're going with that. We got a live one." Oh fuck, dude! Why'd you have to bring that up? Even if anybody's asking, that fucking shit is so awesome. It's what Joe Pina or something like that. It's not Joe Pera, because I'm thinking of Joe Pera. He's a different dude. No. Anyway, this guy does this Adam Pina. Fuck. Anyway, it's that video, the Scooby Snacks one, where the guy's just passing the pipe to Fred. It's the greatest video. It's only like a minute long, but it captures the essence of a stoner's interaction up in the woods. And reading the comments, it made me wonder. I keep thinking about this because why was it so good? Why is it something that I watched probably 12 times and still laugh at it every time? But others might find meh or not think it's as funny. To me, it was perfect. It wasn't just the fact that it was Shaggy and Fred and Scooby. And if you're wondering, it's an animation. You should definitely watch it. It's called Scooby Snacks. Oh shit, that's not going to help, is it? Well, somebody will post what it's called. But it's it's just funny to me, and I can't figure out why. And I think it's just maybe the distraction and the reality of him clicking on his headlamp and looking at the weed and packing the bowl and looking at space for a minute and passing the bowl to Fred. And why do certain things resonate with us the way they do, you know? And more importantly, how do we get more of that? You know what I'm saying? How do we get more of that into our lives? It's a good one. Plano, Plano, Texas, baby. Water. You drink 2 gallons of water a day? Holy shit. Let me tell you something. I don't. I drink no water most days. I mean, I'll have a water bottle at work or something, and if I'm thirsty, I'll drink it. But I get most of my water from, and I'm going to be honest, at least lately, unless I'm working hard and I'm sweating a lot. In the summer, I'll drink a lot more, but in the winter, I might only get my water from and coffee and milk and some juice. I mean, like really, I don't need very much, but I tend to drink more water, especially when I'm. Well, I used to take piss tests all the time, and I had to drink a lot of water to go pee, and it was horrible because then I'd have to pee all day long, and it's a horrible feeling when you have to pee all day long. I don't like that. Oh, Mikey, getting kava crunk. Nice. Politics would consume your life. No politics. I hate fucking politics. That's funny because I have my friend texting me about politics right now. Actually, the text I had to mute, they were talking about Ilhan Omar or whatever, and I said something like, "You watch Fox News too much," or it was a half joke. But then my friend said hashtag simpleton, and then my other friend got all pissed off because he thought he was talking to him, and he's like, "No, I'm talking about myself," and which I totally believe because he always jokes about himself like that. But it was how text gets taken out of context and that people take things the wrong way, and it's kind of funny because nobody, all mean well. Like I have good friends where we can argue about stupid shit, but never really get mad or fight about anything. It's like we have different opinions. One of my friends is like right, on the right, and my other friend's a completely left wing liberal, and I'm like right in the middle, where I can argue both sides and be like, yeah, I agree kind of partially with both of those ideas, but it doesn't mean my ideas are better or worse. I know that any extremes usually lead to the middle. I've been on here too long. I think I should probably have to go now. Jay says I'm the worst on hints. Yeah, me too. See, if I can't keep up. Yep, humble, you're right. Social media is a shitty way to meet people. Ha, jackass. You can save a lot of money if you don't date married and have no kids. Amen to that. Oh, thanks, Adam. Joe Kappa. Yep, he's the one who created it. Um, if you aren't married and have no kids, you are correct. And I think this is a really good point because I kind of wanted to talk about this topic actually. Um, there's a movement called anti-natalism. It's not. I wouldn't call it a movement. What I really mean is it's like a group of people who believe that basically the human life has no inherent value whatsoever. Therefore, there's no point in existing at all. Now, they're not suicidal people or people that want to harm others. They're just people who are, the way I describe it is people who are nihilists but haven't got out of the rut of nihilism yet. Um, and I could go on to that further, I guess, but I'd go on forever about it. I believe nihilism is just a means to an end, but not an end within itself. So once you believe and understand, in my belief, what Nietzsche really meant, or kind of his own experience, that basically what you have to do is completely eliminate what you've been told and what you think is true about the world, and then create a new world for yourself. The problem is a lot of people ditch the world and then don't create a world for themselves, and therefore they fall into this pit of despair thinking nothing has any inherent value, which is probably correct. But inherent is just based on their perspective, and really, if a whole group of people believe something has value, then that's probably inherent enough value for you to at least value something a little bit. And if you can value it a little bit, then you can value it a lot and find what your values are in life, which is all humans do. Otherwise, we're just apes. So we create these little values for ourselves. And it's weird. It's weird. Like, I don't know. To put it simply, if you're not harming anyone else, then do what you do, right? Isn't that what it should always be about? Um, but to your discussion about if you're not married and have no kids, um, it does save you a lot of money, but it costs you something too, I think. But it's something I can't define. I don't think, because to me, money is not a means to an end either. Money is just something I use to keep afloat doing the things I do. I have enough money saved to where I could buy myself at least 4 coffees, but let's just say that uh, I kind of wish sometimes that I had more of a motivation to make big profits, but it's just not my thing. So I don't know. I'm gonna go in a few minutes because it's already been almost 3 hours, and that kind of blows me away. I did not realize it had been that long. For some reason, the time gets away from me while I'm doing these live casts. Maybe one day I'll do some kind of online seminar or something. If I actually had my shit organized before me, I could probably do that. It'd be fun. Then I could charge for it. And then I could be a millionaire like everyone else, like Andrew Tate taught me. I could be a big internet star. Oh, God. Let's hope not. Well, sometimes I'm just testing myself. In other words, when I'm making these, I'm somewhat testing myself to see what my endurance really is. And I think I started this at 7:19, so at least that gives me a 10:19. It must be 10:19 West Coast time. But really, time is relative, isn't it, my friends? I mean, maybe this as I bring myself to a close in this video, I'll kind of backtrack to the beginning, which a lot of people here weren't here in the beginning, as I began talking about why everything sucks. And I had a whole list of things that suck, which I can just briefly, I'll just list them off instead of describing each one. You can go back and watch the beginning if you choose, but the whole idea that jobs are all part-time jobs now, that there's no future, there's no respect for the people, they get 35 hours so they don't get insurance. The internet sucks, social media sucks, it's all catered and censored to where you can't even get the bullshit that you want to see, you get the bullshit everybody else wants you to see. Music sucks, so much of it sucks now. Movies suck, so much of them totally suck now. There's a lot of crime, there's theft, there's bad attitudes, there's carjackings, there's a decline in general intelligence. The Americans have just totally fallen by the wayside. We have inflation, globalization, food, farming, fake meat being grown in laboratories. We have all the drugs contaminated with fentanyl. And culture's been replaced with virtue signaling. Everybody's angry, everybody's complaining, and everyone is neurotic right now. What do we do? What do we do? How do we get past this? Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. In a nutshell, I think it's already being done. I think it's being done in the wings of society where people aren't paying enough attention. For all the people who are virtue signaling and complaining about certain discussions and hate speech, these are the same people who don't realize that Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan experience is basically the fucking forefront and the epitome of change. It is allowing people to speak in full length format for better or worse, depending on what they have to share. Regardless of what Joe says or how he feels, the people he interviews are forced to sit there live for 2 to 3 hours or longer and talk about these things. And Lex Friedman is another one. He has some great interviews with people, and he may not push as hard, and neither does Joe, but the fact is, it's much harder to get an idea of who a person is when they're not exposing themselves long format like this. And so many people hate Joe Rogan, call him a transphobe, homophobe, a hater. It's unbelievable. People call him a racist. If I'm not mistaken, Joe Rogan has a black wife, I think. Or maybe it was a black adopted son. I don't even know. I don't follow celebrities, but I know one of his, either his kid or his wife is black. And I thought people can call him all these names without understanding the context. And it was a fascinating look at society. Why are people so threatened by one guy when he's not the one that people are watching? This is what I'm getting at. I'm not a Joe Rogan fanatic. He is a wonderful platform for anybody to speak who has an opinion, a reasonable opinion. And my belief is that any idea that's bad will be rooted out by the people. If the collective mob comes up against someone, the only way that they're going to be successful is if they're right. And this is something that is totally different on social media, places like YouTube, places like Facebook. If you post anything that's negative about politics, anything that goes against the main narrative, the main grain, maybe you said that Biden's laptop was real. I hate to bring that up again, but like you see all the networks said it was a conspiracy and people are lunatics and they believe this Biden laptop thing. It turned out to be true. They put it, it was like he admitted it was true. So here we are, right? So many of the things with COVID, so many of the different things that went down that I can't even talk about still because of the censorship on YouTube, because of the way that honestly, unless you make content that talks about these things and actually post it online, you'll never know what they allow and what they don't. Only the people who have dared to try to say, hey, I kind of feel like I'm suspicious about maybe getting a shot, or I feel like I want to know more info. These are things that are buried and channels are shadow banned over even having questions. And I know this because I've had my channel almost deleted. I've had copyright strikes and had my videos deleted, not copyright, but strikes against my channel for breaking YouTube's guidelines by talking about COVID, something that I'd been through as a human being. Like even saying that word like puts me on that YouTube algorithm list where, oh, demonetized, right? Why can't we talk about certain topics? And this doesn't just hurt people who like are arguing against things. It's even people for things because they get mixed up in the same discussions. And it's weird to live in a world where so much of that is censored. And so you're only getting part of the story no matter what. You're getting sound bites. Sound bites people want you to see. That's pretty obvious. Those who control the media control the narrative. People like Bezos, right? He owns a shitload of media. Well, guess who else does? Mark Zuckerberg, uh, Elon Musk. Like, people buy media stock so they can have positive stories written about them. That's a fact, not a conspiracy, right? So the point back to Joe Rogan is that he allows a full format discussion where other people can talk without being censored at all. And that freaks some people out because they're afraid that if people are uncensored completely, oh my God, they're going to say the most horrendous things. But they don't. They don't. Because most people are civil. Most people are kind. Most people mean well and just want to be heard completely. There's a few loonies on there. I've heard some stupid shit. But at least we can hear people out. And if we try to censor people, then nothing's ever going to get done. So, anyway, thanks for coming along. I appreciate all your time. It's been a few hours. I think I'm going to have to maybe go one more hour, says Humble. Yeah, I can't fucking stay another hour, if that's what you're talking about. I might try, but I don't know, man. It's a long fucking. West Coast is the best coast. Oh, the ice storm, Sandra. Yeah, that's fucked up, dude. I heard that was pretty bad. Nietzsche says, we make meaning, so make the meaning and overcome. Nothing nihilistic about that. Oh, agreed. But nihilism's definitely attributed to him. So people just don't understand, I guess, the meaning. And it all comes down to definition like anything, right? Sandra says there will always be haters. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Joe. Yeah. Yeah, you know what's funny is Joe Rogan, he was actually, oh God, that guy, when he was on Fear Factor and I was younger, I remember just being like, you know, who is this dude? Like, God, he's annoying as hell, and I didn't really like him. Move the camera a little bit here. There we go, so I can chill a little more. It's been 3 hours though. I should go soon. I've been saying that. Uh, Rogan, being a Fear Factor announcer, he was just this annoying dude where people ate random shit, gross stuff, and did stupid things. But I never really knew anything about his UFC stuff, and I don't even watch any of his shows because like half of his podcasts are with UFC fighters, and some of them can be interesting. They talk about different, aspects of jujitsu and concentration and martial arts are fascinating too. But I'm pretty selective about the ones that I do watch or listen to rather. But I did listen to the one with Malone, the doctor who invented the mRNA research, and or like so many of the people he's had on with scientific backgrounds have made it pretty clear that we were bullshitted during the pandemic, and we knew that. We knew that then, but it's been confirmed. And there's been this, I think somebody mentioned it, is people kind of want a, what's the word I'm looking for? They expect a past, kind of just like be like, well, for those of us who were all harsh on you, and you people who didn't want the shot, well, it's kind of forgive and forget. Oh, well, we're past it now. But it's like, well, wait a minute. People lost their businesses. They lost their jobs. They were chastised by the community for being selfish and not getting a shot that turned out not to even be tested against transmission. And it got really complicated. I figure I've already probably said too much even talking about that because you know, a lot of folks don't really look at data. I think most people don't. I don't blame any of you who don't spend the time to read data, but I've been to like the PubMed, fucking NCBI, whatever the fuck it is. It's some like, there's like a few main science sites that you can go to. Most of the science journals are hidden. I think it's like JSTOR or something, but Yeah, you have to pay to access information. It's pretty fucked up. But there are a lot of open science papers that are very obscure that you can find. And if you look hard enough, you come across some of these amazing articles about like medicinal mushrooms like cordyceps and, how reishi and lion's mane can cross like the blood-brain barrier and help neurons and it's neuroregenerative and that helps with certain diseases and that they've done like some trial somewhere where it helped with this or that. And you're like, okay, there's potential here, but it's just not being explored enough. And a lot of them are natural things that really otherwise people no pharmaceutical industry wants to patent natural medicines because, well, there's no money in it. You can't patent natural medicines. You can't patent a plant or a natural compound. You can make a synthetic version of it and patent that. But if something occurs in nature, it cannot be patented. So they will make isomers or, some, closely related compound and try to patent their formula, whatever it might be. But yeah, it's always been about business. It's kind of gross. Kind of gross. Yep, yep. All right, well, guys, it's been 3 minutes and five. I'm out now. And I appreciate your time. Whoop, my phone's leaving. And I'll see you next time. Peace out.